My sister can control who hears her inner thoughts. In my past life, manipulated by her mental whispers, my family locked me in a psychiatric hospital. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the day my stepsister arrived, outwardly innocent, she thought. Is this really the villain from the novel who bankrupted our company, drove dad to suicide, and nearly killed my brother? With a cold laugh, I turned and dialed the National Security Hotline. I'd like to report an interdimensional trespasser in our household. After a decade locked in the psychiatric ward, I finally died of depression. When consciousness returned, it was precisely during my brother's engagement banquet with his girlfriend, the day before John Lily came to our home. Tomorrow, my father will bring home his fallen comrade's orphan, who'll become our family's third child, my younger sister, one. In my past life, ever since her arrival, my father, brother, and everyone around me turned cold toward me overnight, some even treating me like a sworn enemy, yet she effortlessly won everyone's affection. Jealousy drove me to the brink of madness. I fought against Jan Lily with reckless abandon, yet every scheme I devised was effortlessly seen through. On the eve of the college entrance exams, my 18th birthday, I physically assaulted Jan Lily. My own brother then produced a psychiatric evaluation and had me committed. I never saw any of them again for the rest of my life. On the evening of the engagement party, before we even got home, my dad took a phone call and rushed off. The next afternoon, I woke up at the exact same time as in my past life, just in time to see my dad walking through the gate with Jan Lily. This part was identical to my previous life. The difference was, in that past life, Evan had left for work early that morning and didn't return until late at night. Today, I faked being sick to get my brother to come home, and he brought his fiancée along with him. Evan, you're home too. My father pulled Jan Lily forward from behind him. This is Jan Lily, my comrade's daughter. She'll be staying with us for a while. In my past life, I barely noticed Jan Lily's reaction when she arrived. I genuinely thought she was just staying temporarily, so I brushed her off in my hurry to go out, giving her only a casual greeting before bolting. But now, looking closely, I realized, how could a child who'd just lost both parents show no trace of grief? Instead, she was staring straight at me, sizing me up. Is she really Uncle Jung's child? The next second, a sweet voice rang out of nowhere. Wow, is this the ultimate villain from the original story who bankrupted the company, drove dad to jump off a building, and nearly killed my brother? No one had actually spoken aloud. Both my father and brother wore identical shocked expressions, their gazes first landing on Jan Lily's face before simultaneously turning toward me. I suppressed my shock. In my past life, I never heard her inner thoughts, only felt how my father and brother began distancing themselves after her arrival, and how all relatives and friends grew to dislike me. So the truth was actually this absurd. Faced with such an unbelievable situation, not a single one of them chose to call the police. They simply took her unspoken accusation as my death sentence. It's like they forcibly dumbed it down. 02, but Jan Lily probably doesn't know that in this life, there's one more person who can hear her thoughts, me. Yikes, she looks terrifying, just like the ultimate villain from the original story. Am I gonna get killed off in the first 2 episodes? My brother and father were looking at me with growing confusion. In the next instant, I stepped in front of Jan Lily, blocking her path. Spit it out. Is she really your comrade's daughter or your secret love child? My father shot me a glare. What nonsense. She's Uncle Jung's daughter, the same man who held you as a baby. If they're determined to paint me as the villain, I'll play the part to perfection with deliberate theatrics. How long is she staying with us? A day or 2? Wait, you brought luggage. Don't tell me this is permanent. My father's face darkened completely as he gently patted Jan Lily's shoulder. Lily, go inside first. Let me talk to your sister. I blocked Jan Lily's path. Hold on, nobody's going anywhere until we get this straight. Jan Lily's internal monologue screamed, oh no, this villain seems even more ruthless than in the original story. Am I about to get killed right here? 3, Dad and my brother's gazes were fixed on me. Seeing this, Jade mustered her courage to persuade me to step aside. In my past life, I didn't have the best relationship with her. Shortly after their engagement, my brother caught her getting cozy with another man and insisted on calling off the wedding despite her explanations, yet she was practically the only one who comforted me and tended to my wounds when everyone else stabbed me in the back. That's why in this life, I proactively asked for her contact at the engagement party, and precisely because of this, when she heard I was ill, she came back with my brother. I deliberately called out sis-in-law. I'd never let some shady character into my house. Who knows what she's scheming? Right on cue, Jan Lily's snarky remark rang out. Wow, so this is the male lead's fiancé, the one who cuckolded him and nearly helped her lover embezzle his assets. I froze, shooting a sidelong glance at my brother. True enough, he turned downright gullible, instantly eyeing his fiancé with suspicion. So that's the real reason they called off the engagement. At that moment, Seeds of doubt were already planted in my brother's mind. No matter how Jade tried to explain, he wouldn't believe her. Is Jan Lily's inner voice really that bewitching? My father glanced between my brother and Jade, his anger shifting as his tone noticeably softened. Nora, Uncle Jiang and Aunt Jiang had an accident. Jan Lily will be living with us from now on. Your behavior is very rude. I scoffed, the way you're acting. People would think she's your secret love child rather than your comrade's daughter. Did all her relatives vanish along with her parents? Why does she have to stay with us? So that's how it is. Dad shot a nervous glance at Jan Lily, worried my words might have hurt her. Under Dad's gaze, Jan Lily immediately put on a brave face, fighting back tears. My father pointed furiously into the house. Nora, get your ass inside right now. You've gone way too far today. I plopped down on the floor wailing. After 10 years in the psych ward, I'd seen enough of these dramatic meltdowns to know the drill. You're yelling at me. If Mom were here, she'd never let you treat me like this. What kind of sorceress is she? Did she put you under some spell? How dare you shout at me over some outsider? Even if she were divine, she'd bless her own parents first. What's it to you? I muttered pointedly to myself. You've changed. She can't possibly be Uncle Jiang's daughter. I want my mom back. I don't want you. My sarcastic remark jolted them back to their senses a little, casting suspicious glances at Jan Lily. But when my brother saw me throwing a tantrum, he couldn't help smacking my head. Nora, you're 16, not 6. What's gotten into you? I'd like to know what's gotten into me too. If only you weren't bewitched by her inner monologue, I wouldn't have to act like this. Complaints aside, I still took the out they gave me, though I kept up the act, huffing. Whatever, I just don't like her. She's totally that two-faced, innocent type who'll badmouth people behind their backs. Bet she'll go running to you with some sob story about me later. My dad and brother instinctively glanced at Jan Lily simultaneously, their expressions growing more skeptical, seeing the seeds of doubt were properly sown. I dropped the act and stormed off to my room in feigned anger. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught my brother still gripping Jade's hand tightly. I felt slightly relieved. It seems their intelligence might still be salvageable in this lifetime. 5. Jan Lily ended up staying at our place after all, and my dad spent ages comforting her. After all, someone who could push me into the abyss with just a single thought wouldn't be so easily dethroned. The next morning when I came downstairs, everyone was already seated at the table, and an exquisite cream cake sat at my place. As she approached the dining table, Jan Lily timidly said, Sister Nora, I made this little cake for you. I hope you'll like it. At the same moment, that familiar voice echoed in my ears again. Oh please, if the big bad eats my cake, maybe they'll go easy on me and let me survive till the finale. I just want to focus on my studies, not get dragged into your corporate power struggles. I maintained a straight face as I pulled out the chair and sat down. Great, starting the drama first thing in the morning. Your mind-reading skills are scarily accurate. Every word hits right where it hurts with those two. Sure enough, my dad and brother's expressions darkened. Your sister woke up early to bake you a cake. Who do you think you're scowling at? Dad snapped. In my past life, it was the same old story. Just because I had morning grumpiness and couldn't eat cake, my dad accused me of giving him attitude when I couldn't force a smile. That trivial incident became the starting point. I began finding fault with the female lead everywhere, making things difficult for her at every turn. After being scolded in my previous life, my temper flared. Without explanation, I petulantly slammed my chopsticks down and stormed off from the dining table. But now, smack, I flipped the cake upside down onto the table. Who's her sister? My father glared at me coldly. Nora. Apologize. I looked up at him, unable to suppress my sarcasm. Dad, Mom told me she raised me all by herself when I was little. You barely even held me, so you didn't know I'm lactose intolerant and can't have any dairy. Is that it? I wasn't sure if Jan Lily made that cake on purpose or if she'd accidentally stepped on my landmine. After all, judging from her inner thoughts, it seems we're all living in the world of a book and she knows every plot twist of this story. If you insist I'm the villain, then why would we villains ever take this lying down? My father fell silent after my retort, so I immediately turned my attack towards Jan Lily. Are you our housemaid? Don't we have actual staff? What possessed you to wake up at dawn baking cakes? 6. Jan Lily's face turned deathly pale, tears welling up instantly. Jan Lily was strikingly beautiful, and when she cried, her delicate tear-streaked face looked utterly pitiful, enough to melt any man's heart. I'm sorry, I thought you might dislike me, sis, so I made this cake, while subtly provoking me. She was internally panicking. Oh no, not again. Did I upset her? She really lives up to being the ultimate villain, so temperamental. If you know I'm the villain, why are you so eager to come to my place? I sneered. What, did Uncle Jem mistreat you that badly? The Jem family's loaded, yet you're acting like some penny-pinching brat. Are you even his real daughter? Jian Lily shrank under my words, instinctively hiding her hands beneath the table as she threw my brother Evan a pleading look. I really didn't know you couldn't eat cake. I just like baking desserts sometimes. Wah, big bro, save me. You're the male lead from the original story. Only you can keep her in check. The moment Evan met the heroine's pleading gaze, his inner white knight instantly awakened. Enough, Nora. You've been throwing tantrums since morning. When will it end? Shaoli didn't mean it. If you can't eat it, don't. Must you lash out at everyone like the whole world's wronged you? I turned to face Evan squarely, waiting until he finished scolding before responding. So now you're taking her side to lecture me too? Evan, I'm just calling it as I see it. I smirked without further argument, rising from the couch and exiting the living room. Jian Lily transferred to our school and ended up in my class. No idea how my dad pulled it off. But she started commuting to school with me the next day, just like in our past life. Back then I'd never waited for her, but now, no way was I leaving her alone with my father and brother. I offered to take her to school myself. Jian Lily seemed utterly startled by my unexpected concern, frantically turning to my father. Uncle, no, she's the main villain. She's definitely going to hurt me. Woo-woo. I don't want to die yet. Whether I'd accidentally awakened my father's conscience or he'd been reminded of my mother, this time he didn't completely side with the female lead. After warning me not to bully little sister, he actually let me take Jian Lily out with me. In my past life, his attitude toward me had done a complete 180 the moment the female lead appeared, as if I weren't his child at all. But this time, it seems he hasn't been influenced by her inner monologue, at least not yet. I felt considerably more at ease. There was still room to turn things around. Jian Lily followed me to school cautiously, staying unusually quiet the whole way. Not a single thought of hers reached my ears. 7. Talk about targeted delivery. Right after arriving at school, I bumped into Arthur, the top student in our grade. The moment I entered the classroom, I'm academically hopeless with wide-ranging interests. But studying is the one thing that just doesn't spark my enthusiasm. My status-conscious dad pulled strings to get me into the school's top class. Arthur not only consistently ranked first in our grade, but was also the school heartthrob and our class monitor. The moment I walked into class, he'd immediately demand my homework. What homework could I possibly have? Just as I was about to brush it off like usual, the female lead quipped, Arthur, the guy Nora had a crush on in the original story. But after rejecting her, got sexually assaulted by people she hired. Both Arthur and I froze in shock. God knows I barely had any interaction with him in my past life. Far from liking him, I actually found him quite irritating, always wearing that sour expression like the whole world owed him a fortune. Now that I think about it, he probably could hear Jian Lily's inner thoughts too. No wonder he couldn't bring himself to be happy around me. Jian Lily still wasn't done ranting internally. Nora's still looking at him. Damn it, has she already taken a liking to him? How should I warn Arthur about this? My fists were clenched so tight I genuinely wanted to punch her. So now you remember to call me Nora. At home it's always the villainous this and the villainous that. If you just stuck to calling me the big bad like usual instead of using my name, I wouldn't be this embarrassed. I silently took 2 steps back, observing the expressions on both their faces. I may not be a saint, but I'm not the type to force someone just because they don't like me, am I? At worst, I might take matters into my own hands, but that's the absolute limit. What a load of crap this original work is, zero logic whatsoever. 8. Forgot to do it. I casually snatched 2 notebooks from his hands. Give me 10 minutes, I'll copy and hand them right back, under the weight of 2 pairs of scrutinizing eyes. I walked toward the spot I remembered. Jian Lily quickly won the affection of nearly every boy in class, except Arthur. In our past life, I remember Arthur treated Jian Lily well too, even seemed to have romantic feelings for her, but in this life, perhaps because I kept pestering him, he'd bolt every time he saw us together. It's not my fault, my grades were terrible, and he was the smartest in class, even though I knew he disliked me. I had no choice but to swallow my pride and ask him for help. Didn't Jian Lily keep telling everyone through her inner monologue that all she wanted was to focus on studying? How could I possibly lose to her? Every time I saw her going to Arthur for help, I'd immediately push my way in, shove her aside, and ask my own questions. She always puts on that pitiful I won't compete with you act, but behind my back she's constantly trash-talking me. If I were Arthur, I'd probably be sick of both of us too. So instead of obsessively fighting with the female lead like in my past life or throwing tantrums for attention, I focused on studying diligently while occasionally trading barbs with her. The difference is I confront her openly, while she takes passive-aggressive jabs at me, repeatedly thinking about how cruel my original character was while playing the victim to everyone else. My father watched our rivalry without taking sides like he did in our past life. My brother always played mediator. Though he mostly ended up scolding me, Arthur seemed less hostile toward me, perhaps moved by my dedication to studying, with no trace left of his former infatuation for John Lilly. Just when I thought the plot was gradually derailing and they'd eventually return to normal, reality slapped me hard across the face. That evening, my father came home unusually early. In my previous life, I wasn't home that day. But I distinctly remember how my father's attitude toward me completely hit rock bottom afterward, to the point where he could barely stand the sight of me. The reason it's so vivid in my memory is that a major international incident occurred that day. 2 countries suddenly went to war, crashing social media platforms repeatedly from the overwhelming traffic. 09. The moment trending topics exploded across social media, my father suddenly leapt to his feet. His eyes blazing with exhilaration like a diehard fan watching their idol score a winning goal. I suddenly got the sinking feeling in my gut. Sure enough, Jen Lilly walked in from outside carrying books the next second. As she headed toward the second-floor bedroom, she abruptly turned to glance at the news on TV. "Oh, I almost forgot. Country A and Country B went to war today. If we'd stocked up on gold earlier, we'd be making a killing right now. And that guy who came to Uncle for investment the other day, his company will go public and become a household name in the future. This is the perfect time to invest." I stared at my father in shock, watching the fanatical excitement in his eyes fade, replaced by an intense gaze fixed on John Lilly. "Come here, Shaoli," my dad called out warmly to John Lilly. "What's up, Uncle? Are you free tomorrow? Could you come with me to the office?" "But I have school tomorrow." "I'll get you a half day off. Come with your uncle to the company first. You're not a child anymore. It's time to gain some real-world experience," my father hinted. "Don't worry, since your father entrusted you to me, you're now my daughter Baron. Everything the Yin family owns will have your share." I was stunned. "Dad, what are you saying?" My father looked up at me, his eyes filled with the same cold indifference and irritation I knew all too well from my past life. "Nora, why are you running around instead of doing your homework? Get back to your room." I felt like I'd been plunged into an icy abyss. In that moment, I realized it wasn't John Lilly's inner voice controlling him. He'd simply chosen her over me, driven by jealousy and resentment. I targeted John Lilly because I believed the female lead had stolen everything from me. So why does my father cherish John Lilly while despising his own flesh and blood? It's painfully obvious. All comes down to that single word, profit. Naturally, some outsider who could bring him immense benefits would be 100 times more valuable than his own flesh and blood, a daughter who might one day drive him to jump off a building. No. Perhaps I never mattered to him from the very beginning. Otherwise, why would he bury himself in work after my birth without ever lifting a finger to care for me? Everything is predestined. How ironic. I naively believed that sowing doubt about John Lilly's confession would make them care for me again, never realizing it was never about him being bewitched. He chose this willingly. Fine then, stay shackled together. What's mine stays mine. Not a single thread shall be touched. That includes you, Baron. Since they're so fond of playing mind games, how could I possibly pass up this golden opportunity? My family runs a family-owned business. In her past life, the female lead's smooth journey to securing influence in the company was partly due to my Uncle Ward, my father's younger brother. By my calculations, it's about time for Uncle to make his entrance. My father's birthday is coming up soon, and my uncle visited our house that day to discuss the guest list for the celebration. In my past life, my uncle had brought me a gift when he came, but after meeting with my father and John Lilly, his attitude toward me turned cold. He ended up filing for divorce from my aunt shortly after returning home. This time followed the same pattern. My uncle arrived with gifts, and my father took him and John Lilly into the study to talk. The difference was, this time I sneaked into the next room to eavesdrop after they went in. 10. The room was soundproof, yet John Lilly's inner voice carried clearly, limited only by distance, never by walls. I'd tested it. Within a 5-meter radius, I could hear her thoughts as clearly as spoken words. Soon after John Lilly entered, her mental monologue reached me. "Ward, isn't he that guy from the original story whose cheating wife teamed up with Nora to frame him, leaving him penniless? Oh dear, this uncle's practically wearing a neon cuckold sign. Your wife's been sleeping with your assistant for years. How have you not noticed? Tisk tsk. Oh great, I'm everywhere. Where on earth did this original work come from? Why would I side with my cheating aunt over the uncle who's given me gifts since childhood? How is no one questioning such an obvious issue? I've barely exchanged more than a few words with that aunt, and she's always disliked me. Am I out of my mind to help her?" Not long after, my uncle stormed out, hiding inside. I quietly grabbed my pocket-sized camera and captured his furious face before retreating to my bedroom. "Since you all actually believed I'd help that aunt, wouldn't it be a shame to disappoint my carefully crafted persona by not playing along?" That very day, my uncle did go back to catch them in the act. I remember in their past life, Their divorce lawsuit dragged on forever. In the end, my aunt still managed to secure a portion of the assets before they finally split. This just goes to show my aunt isn't someone to be trifled with. This time, my uncle's definitely bitten off more than he can chew. Without hesitation, I called my aunt. Auntie, someone told Uncle you're having an affair with his assistant. He just stormed out of my place in a rage. That very evening, my aunt showed up at our doorstep with my uncle sporting a bruised face. When they arrived, young Lily was doing homework in the living room while my dad watched the news. When the doorbell rang, Dad told young Lily to answer it. She skipped to the door with a radiant smile on her face, but the moment the door opened, a stinging slap landed across her cheek. You little bitch, are you the one spreading rumors about me cheating? Young Lily was slapped so hard she fell to the ground. Her cheek instantly flushing red, trembling, she covered her face and slowly lipped up, tears welling in her eyes. I never said anything. My father helped Jan Lily up and shielded her behind him. Vera, what the hell are you doing? Auntie twisted Uncle's ear with one hand while pointing at my father's nose with the other. Your bastard daughter, defending her like this. My father's face darkened with rage, but he maintained his so-called dignity. Avoiding a direct confrontation with Auntie, he just snapped at Uncle. Ward, letting a woman boss you around. What kind of man are you? Auntie sneered. What bullshit are you spouting? You think everyone's like your late wife, taking abuse without fighting back. What kind of man is Ward? You two brothers are cut from the same cloth, both climbed over women to get ahead. You're just better at pretending. Don't think your dirty secrets died with your wife, spreading rumors about me. You've got a death wish. Jan Lily trembled behind my dad, still managing to throw shade internally. No wonder she gets along with the main villain. She's clearly no saint either. Oh no, would Uncle really sacrifice me as a scapegoat? Sniff. I really didn't say anything. No, Uncle would never do that. He's such a good person. I should trust him. You've truly mastered the art of emotional manipulation, after all. Jan Lily genuinely made my dad a fortune. Rumor has it he cleared at least 100 million from this gold futures trade. Would he really lose trust in her over such a trivial matter? Impossible. Under my dad's protection, my aunt couldn't lay a finger on her in the end. She just cursed my father out before dragging my uncle away. She never gave me away till the very end. My aunt's solid like that. Not just that. She even threw in a bonus gift for me. Baron, how did my mother really die? My mother passed away from illness when I was 5, that's my earliest memory. After that, I lived with my grandparents. My grandparents spoiled me rotten, which shaped my rebellious nature. It wasn't until 3rd grade that my father finally took me in to live with him. I'd always believed my mother's death was just an accident, never questioned it. But it wasn't until I visited my grandparents that day that I realized none of this was accidental. 11. My grandparents would never tell me the truth. My mother discovered my father's affair during her postpartum confinement after giving birth to me. He was keeping another woman. The shock and postpartum depression took such a toll on her health that she never fully recovered. My father claimed to have ended his affair, but kept using work as an excuse to neglect my mother. By then his business was thriving. He no longer needed Mom and practically wished her dead to seize her shares. What's more, my grandparents revealed something else to me. Before her death, Mom willed her 30% company shares exclusively to me with explicit instructions against transfer to others, while leaving her real estate and vehicles to my brother. Everyone in our family knew about this will except me. My mother even had the will notarized, but the will's whereabouts remain unknown to this day, so I still haven't inherited the estate, all these years. Whenever I mentioned visiting my grandfather's house, my father would always come along. I used to think he was worried about me, but now I see it wasn't me he was concerned about, it was my knowledge of this will's existence. No wonder. I remember after Dad brought me home, he kept asking if Mom had given me anything special. Those years he left me at Grandma's, he must have been searching for that will, only brought me back when he couldn't find it. On my father's birthday, I returned. Nobody knew I'd been staying at Grandpa's place these days. His whole world revolves around Jian Lily now. He wouldn't even notice whether I'm home or not. That day, Jade showed up after being away for so long, looking noticeably worn out. The moment I saw her arrive with my brother, my heart skipped a beat. I just knew something was off, so I took the initiative to pull Jade aside for a private chat. My fears came true after all. My father willingly let Jian Lily manipulate him for personal gain. 12. What about my brother then? Was the marriage really called off just because Jade appeared to be cheating? Clearly not. Nora, have you noticed lately? Jade hesitated before whispering under my encouragement. Has there been another woman around your brother? I kept my composure. What's wrong? I feel like your brother's become a different person. I can't quite put my finger on it. He's not nearly as attentive as before. Sometimes I wonder if he ever really loved me at all. Besides your gut feeling, I pressed. Was there anything specific that made you think he was acting strange? Jade said. Remember when we ran into that old classmate of mine while shopping? I told you how he had a crush on me in school, but I wasn't interested. You even warned me to stay away from him. One day, I caught your brother looking through my phone. When I checked, it was a message from that guy inviting me to a class reunion. Knowing your brother, I expected him to be furious, but he didn't react at all when he saw the message. When I said I wouldn't go, he actually encouraged me to attend, but the moment I firmly refused, he suddenly got upset, left in the middle of dinner without even finishing his meal. So he actually bought John Lily's story hook, line and sinker. He genuinely believes Jade would cheat on him. But what she said next made me reconsider. Just the other day, I went to your place to see him. When I tried holding his hand to go shopping together, he freaked out and shoved me away, Jade said, visibly shaken. Why would he overreact like that in his own home? I shot an incredulous look at my brother. Was there someone else at our house that day? Jade shook her head. No, it was just your sister doing homework. That's why I held his hand, 13, right at that moment. I looked up and saw my brother gently wiping food crumbs from young Jade's face, so it wasn't some spell cast by John Lily's inner voice. He was just a lust-driven scumbag all along. Come to think of it, how could he resist, facing John Lily's breathtaking beauty and future-seeing abilities daily, those doe eyes gazing at him with adoration while her heart overflowed with praise and worship? Just another scumbag cut from the same cloth as Dad. Why is it that our whole family's rotten? Yet I'm the only villain in John Lily's book. You all want to climb over me. Keep dreaming. I didn't try to persuade Jade any further. All I could do was help her dodge the prophecy sword hanging over her head, but I couldn't stop my brother from changing his heart. The final choice had to be hers. I merely hinted at my brother's questionable attitude toward John Lily. Not long after, Jade told me she'd decided to break off the engagement with my brother. I confirmed their visiting schedule in advance and made preparations accordingly. On the day of breaking off the engagement, Jade's parents accompanied her. According to tradition, the gifts exchanged during the betrothal had to be returned. Given their ongoing business ties, Jade's parents maintained a frosty demeanor toward my brother and John Lily, but were more diplomatic with my father, citing incompatibility as the reason. Just as the discussion between both parties was nearing its conclusion, John Lily's troublesome relative showed up. Naturally, I was the one who invited them. 14. I've been wondering why John Lily would choose to leave with my father despite knowing I'm the villain. Turns out I'm just some brainless antagonist from a third-rate romance novel, while her relatives are all primetime drama experts at full-scale family feuds. And my father, a man who only cares about profit, why would he willingly bring such trouble home? Naturally, it's because John Lily inherited a fortune from her parents. After Uncle John's tragic death, that pack of vultures from the John family had been sharpening their claws to fight over the inheritance. Without my father's protection, John Lily would have been devoured alive by those relatives long ago. In my past life, they never showed up even when I got locked away in the mental institution. Who knows if my father pulled some strings behind the scenes, or if they only came sniffing around after I was gone. When these gold-digging relatives got wind of the inside story I deliberately leaked, about John family adopting Lily just to groom her relationship with Evan and swallow up the entire John fortune, and then witnessed Evan breaking off his engagement with their own eyes, how could they possibly doubt it? Even Uncle and Aunt She were convinced, not just them. Our household became quite the spectacle for a while. It took the police arriving to finally free my father and the others. 15. My father, who always prized propriety, was left utterly disheveled. John Lily clearly hadn't anticipated this scenario. How could her delicate, Willa-like physique endure such torment from these people, bruised purple and red from the pinching? She wept with even more raw anguish than when her aunt had beaten her. The farce ended temporarily when my father swore before the entire John family that he'd adopted John Lily with pure intentions, and that Evan could never harbor any improper feelings for her. But this was far from enough. Those 10 years in the mental institution weren't just my past life's ending. If I let John Lily stay in our house this time around, the day my father becomes the richest man through her, my fate will be far worse than before, so I have to win this, with my instigation. The John family plunged into months of inheritance battles until the court redistributed Uncle John's estate according to inheritance laws. Every last John, down to the family dog, got their cut of the pie. John Lily's assets have taken a massive hit. Apart from her looks, what she can offer my brother now pales in comparison to Jade. As for the ability to foresee the future, our father controls everything. He can only scavenge for scraps left behind, without the She family's backing. His position in the conglomerate isn't as cushy as before. In his past life, after breaking off the engagement with Jade, he probably had his eyes on Jiang Lily's fortune. That's why he could play the long game with such composure. This time around, I've already stripped away a significant portion of his hidden advantages. His growing panic is evident as he's begun probing, both overtly and covertly, about whether Mom left me anything special. I'm sorely tempted to ask him, do you really think the company would still have a place for you even if you found that special thing? Since I haven't managed to locate Mom's will, I've been biding my time, collecting the female lead's occasional emotional leaks while focusing on the impending college entrance exams. Throughout these 3 years, not a single day passed where I slacked off academically, even while locked in battle with the female lead, after literally dying once. How could studying possibly compare to the decade I spent being treated as mentally ill? I treasure the second chance deeply. Arthur's gone from being wary of me to completely letting his guard down. Who'd have thought that after rebirth, the one person immune to the plot's control would be a complete stranger with no blood ties to me? No surprise the top students got brains, the kids sharp as a tack. Never expected this special thing to arrive in such a surprising yet perfectly reasonable way. On my 18th birthday, the last break before the college entrance exams, today would be followed by visiting the test site tomorrow, and the exams themselves the day after. This time, I chose to return to Grandma's house. The Yun household had long ceased to be a place I could call home. True to Jiang Lily's description as the male lead, Evan laid low in the corporation after breaking off the engagement with the Shi family, leveraging the heroine's inner thoughts and his own capabilities. He successfully secured several major projects, firmly establishing his position. His gaze toward Jiang Lily grew increasingly intense. After all, who wouldn't adore a prophet who brings wealth and status? With their attention wholly focused on Jiang Lily, they naturally forgot my birthday, just like in the previous life, 16, in my past life. The reason I completely lost control and lashed out at Jiang Lily without warning was precisely because on my birthday, I'd been desperately hoping my father and brother would remember me again, yet not only did none of them realize it was my birthday, they took Jiang Lily out alone to pray for blessings, wishing her success in the college entrance exams. This lifetime, they didn't take me either, perhaps in their eyes, as an academic failure. I shouldn't even have the right to take those exams. For 3 years, I deliberately underperformed in every exam to avoid suspicion, consistently ranking at the bottom of my class. Nobody knew my secret except Arthur. When Arthur asked me, I only gave him one response: those not of our kind can never share our hearts. Arthur's a genius. He grasped my meaning with just a hint. While tutoring me diligently, he played along with my act, constantly scolding me for being so dense. As for Jiang Lily, she's probably too confident in her own abilities. To this day she hasn't suspected a thing. Completely obsessed with Evan morning till night. After all, she's the protagonist with golden fingers. When we arrived at Grandma's place, she prepared a whole table full of delicious dishes for me. They celebrated a wonderful birthday with me. Even though they knew I struggled academically, they still reminded me to stay calm during exams, not to leave any questions blank, and to do my best. During dinner, I received a call from a stranger claiming to have been entrusted by my late mother to deliver a gift to me. I had a hunch this must be that will, but upon arrival, I discovered not just the will, there was also an entire set of priceless jewelry. Nora, I was your mother's close friend. She entrusted me to personally deliver this coming-of-age gift to you, said it was an early dowry prepared in advance. Tears had already streamed down my face, so her love had never left me after all. Mom had everything planned out long ago to ensure this precious gift would reach me and fulfill its purpose. Had Jiang Lily not appeared, I would have grown up safely under Mom's protection and eventually become a responsible adult. It just came back to me. On this day in my past life, they went to the temple for blessings but returned unusually early. Looking back now, in that previous life I never knew about this will in advance. Nor did I visit Grandma's house. Uncle Gus probably came looking for me at home, but at that time I was blinded by jealousy, nearly driven to madness, and single-mindedly plotting revenge against Jiang Lily. When he arrived, he didn't find me but ran into my father and the others instead, or perhaps during the blessing ceremony, Jiang Lily revealed something to them, which is why the will never made it into my hands. In other words, even if I hadn't laid a finger on Jiang Lily, my brother would have likely tried to eliminate me anyway. We're both Mom's children, why would she leave all the important shares to me alone? But now, the tables are about to turn, right on schedule. Jiang Lily should have been taken away by state security inspectors by now. Whether this will surfaces tonight or not, I've decided to make my move against Jiang Lily. Since you keep claiming all you want is to study, why would I let you take the college entrance exam, after all? I'm the notorious villain in your story. For 3 years, I've been wearing a hidden camera. Every confession Jian Lily made and everyone's reactions were recorded. Every word she said was meticulously documented with timestamps, filled an entire notebook with records. My testimony alone wouldn't hold up, but with Arthur as witness, that very evening, Arthur and I were summoned. Baron and Evan came along too. Though those two had no idea what was going on, NSA agents borrowed police credentials, claiming Jian Lily was connected to a homicide case and needed to be taken in for questioning. Since she was still a minor, they allowed 2 guardians to accompany her. Little did they know, Arthur and I were in adjacent observation rooms on either side of their interrogation chamber. 17. Surveillance personnel kept close watch on both Arthur and me, with Baron and Evan present. Jian Lily's inner monologue never stopped. While answering the interrogators' questions, she kept mentally communicating with the 2 men. Both Arthur and I had pens and paper ready, jotting down every thought we overheard. 30 minutes later, the staff collected our written records and left. No surprise, the answers were practically carbon copies. Jian Lily's inner monologue also included complaints about the national security agents, something neither Arthur nor I could have anticipated. This recording serves as proof that she possesses supernatural abilities. When Jian Lily was handcuffed and taken away, Baron and Evan were completely stunned, even recklessly interfering with the officer's duties despite the situation. Arthur and I stepped outside just in time to see Jian Lily, tears streaming down her face, desperately pleading with them for help. Simultaneously losing control of her thoughts, she screamed hysterically, "Impossible, I'm the transmigrator. I'm supposed to be this world's protagonist. System, damn system, answer me. Why is this happening? How could they be from national security?" I watched their charade coldly, and only when Jian Lily noticed me did I speak up. "Dad, brother, cut the act. Can't you hear her thoughts too? You've known all along she isn't the real Jian Lily. What's this performance for now? After all these years profiting off her, haven't you made enough?" The truth dawned on Jian Lily instantly. With a look of horror, they stared at me. "Impossible. How could you hear that?" Seeing the situation spiral out of control, Baron gave up on rescuing the heroine and just stubbornly insisted, "I don't know what you're talking about." 18. Evan also snapped back to reality. "I don't understand what you mean." A pair of sleek silver handcuffs suddenly clamped onto their wrists. "Gentlemen, you're under arrest for harboring interdimensional terrorists and profiteering. Come with me." Did you really think I'd play along with your charade for 3 years just for fun? The records and your reactions today have already exposed you. I stared coldly at the pair, not uttering another word. After Baron and Evan were taken away for investigation, I produced the will and inherited 30% of the group's shares. With my support and my uncle's existing 5% stake, we became the largest shareholders in the group. My uncle successfully took over the Yin Group. The company only existed because of my mother's investment in the first place. Now that it's back in our family's hands, it's simply returning to its rightful owners. The verdict came swiftly, but the truth remained classified. Only Arthur and I knew the full story. Baron and Evan were convicted of harboring spies and sent straight to prison. As for Jian Lily, their explanation was deliberately vague. My guess, she was probably hauled off for some twisted experiment. As for me, I got into a decent university and began experiencing college life in ways my past self never could. Everything finally fell into place. Story 2. Since early June, Aurora kept dreaming about global cooling, with sudden snowstorms occurring everywhere. The 2 of us, without food or warm clothing, were trapped and perished in a rented room in an urban village. I didn't take it seriously because we live in Binhai City, a subtropical area in the south where winter barely arrives. People can still wear short sleeves in November. Such a place could never experience snow disasters, but after she woke from her 4th nightmare, the events preceding the disaster in her dreams began unfolding exactly as she had dreamed, without a single discrepancy. The apocalypse is truly coming. At a little past 5 in the morning, the bustling city had yet to awaken. Beneath the high-rises of the urban village, only a handful of breakfast stalls were lit in the dim, narrow alleyways. Dragging my suitcase behind me, I turned familiar corners like a rat patrolling its territory in the sewers. I stopped in front of the building where I rented my room and looked up. The protruding security grills from adjacent buildings seemed to clasp each other tightly, blocking out the sky, as if dawn would never come. A few drops of water fell from upstairs, landing on the portrait of my mother that I held in my hands. They were just condensation from the air conditioner, not the tears of gods. If deities truly existed in this world, why would they let my mother fall before the dawn? My name is Maeve, one of many working-class people in Binhai City. I have a father who embodies numerous flaws: alcoholism, womanizing, infidelity, domestic violence, and a preference for sons over daughters. After my parents divorced, I lived with my mother. She worked multiple jobs in our small town just to sustain our lives. Later, I worked hard to leave the town behind. Getting into a university in Binhai City, after graduation, I diligently worked overtime, saving every penny. I was always the last to leave the office each day, and now I've finally managed to save up a small nest egg. Last month, I was offered a promotion with a significant pay raise. Just as I was about to share the good news with my mother, she passed away unexpectedly in a car accident. I opened the iron gate of our rented apartment. After graduating from university, I rented this small one-bedroom unit in a coastal urban village with my best friend Aurora. Aurora was my high school dorm mate. When she was 15, both her parents died in a factory accident. The compensation money was divided among relatives, forcing her to work while studying. She got into the same university as me and stayed in the coastal city after graduation, so we became roommates. My bed was placed in the living room. It wasn't time for work yet, and Aurora was still fast asleep in her room. I sat quietly on my bed for a while when suddenly the snoring stopped. Aurora woke up screaming from her dream. No, no. I pushed open the door. "Did you have another nightmare?" Aurora said with a mournful face. "Maeve, I dreamed again that we froze to death." She had told me about this dream on WeChat when I went home for my mother's funeral. She kept dreaming every few days about global cooling, roads blocked by heavy snow, and the two of us starving and freezing to death in our rented apartment. Aurora, still frightened, wrapped herself tightly in the blanket. "They say things don't happen more than 3 times, but this is the 4th time. Do you think it could be real? Before you forget, write down all the details of your dream." I absent-mindedly handed her paper and pen. "If the events leading up to the disaster in your dream come true, then it might be real. Otherwise, it's just an illusion caused by our air conditioner being set too low." I thought to myself that Binhai City is clearly a subtropical city. If snow were to fall anywhere, it would never be Binhai's turn, let alone a snow disaster. Famous male star was crowned Duke of Duan by netizens after his new TV drama aired, while his girlfriend Miss Sienna was titled Duchess of Duan. I read Aurora's note aloud. "What kind of nonsense is this? The landlord waived 1 month's rent for us. That's even more ridiculous. That penny pincher would haggle over every kilowatt of electricity and every ton of water. How could he possibly waive our rent?" I comforted Aurora, telling her not to overthink things. She lay back down but kept tossing and turning, unable to sleep. When the time came, she simply washed up and left for work. I quit my job before returning to my hometown, and could only lie in bed scrolling through my phone aimlessly. By evening, I couldn't be bothered to cook, so I went downstairs and bought 2 portions of braised pork trotter rice. Aurora surprisingly didn't work overtime today and came home early to lounge around. As we were eating while watching Empresses in the Palace, a notification suddenly popped up on my phone. It was a message from our landlord in the rental group, saying they'd won the dragon boat race against the neighboring village and decided to waive 1 month's rent for all tenants. "Hooray, we can save so much money again," Aurora cheered. I teased that despite the landlord working out and dieting for 2 years, he still only had 1 visible ab muscle, yet somehow managed to win as a first-time substitute paddler. Wait, what did Aurora dream about this morning? I looked at her, her expression shifting from joy to terror. The landlord actually pulled feathers from an iron rooster, waived our rent. So then, I opened Weibo. The top trending topic was Vivi the Duke of Duan. I took out the note Aurora wrote. "It's the evening of the 6th now, and according to the dream's timeline, the blizzard would start on the morning of the 8th. Binhai's transportation would be paralyzed before long. We're running out of time. What should we do? Should we stock up on some food?" "No." I looked around. "We should move first. This less than 20 square meter apartment can barely fit our clothes, and the landlord won't allow us to modify the place. Burning coal for heating here would be no different from committing suicide." I opened my phone. When I was saving money hard before, I always enjoyed browsing real estate apps, fantasizing about life after moving in, so I was quite familiar with the local housing market. This one top floor with a terrace on the 6th level, perfect for installing a stove with an exhaust pipe. The height means we don't need to worry about being buried by heavy snow. Plus there's a forest park nearby that can serve as a fuel source. I was about to call the real estate agent when Aurora stopped me, but that was just my dream. If those 2 matching incidents were merely coincidences and the disaster doesn't come after we've prepared everything, then all the money we've painstakingly saved will be wasted. I stared silently at the balance in my bank account. My non-prestigious bachelor's degree doesn't count for much in this highly competitive big city, and neither does my salary, after 3 years of hard work. My savings only amounted to a little over 100,000 yuan. Aurora doesn't have much obsession with buying property, and her savings are even less, just 20,000 to 30,000 yuan. Home renovations, cold weather clothing, fuel and food. This stockpiling would deplete all our savings, ever since my parents' separation in my third year of junior high. All my efforts have been to escape that small county town with my mother for a better life. Now that she's gone, everything has lost its meaning for me. I have no plans to marry or start a family, nor do I want my savings to be divided among distant relatives back home. This money was always meant for Aurora alone. I trust her intuition. Money can be earned again, but life is irreplaceable. If the disaster never comes, we can consume, use, or resell the stockpiled supplies. But if disaster strikes unprepared, we'll have no way out. I called the real estate agent. This apartment had been listed on the app for ages without being rented. The agent was eager to offload this hot potato, telling me to prepare the deposit plus 3 months' rent for immediate move-in tomorrow morning. I barely slept all night, making an extensive shopping list, ready to split up with Aurora at dawn to purchase supplies. Early the next morning, Aurora went to the market to buy meat and fresh produce, while I went to sign the rental contract and arrange for house renovations. The property is located in the suburbs of Binhai City. Surrounded by beautiful natural scenery with mountains, the sea, and Binhai's largest golf course, many wealthy people bought homes here because they enjoy weekend getaways. However, it's too far from the city center, so the occupancy rate in the community is quite low, with only a few dozen households living there permanently. The property management said ours is the only household living here permanently in this building. Other owners just occasionally come by to take a look. The landlord immigrated overseas years ago and had no objections to my renovations, as long as I paid the rent on time. After signing the contract, I found a renovation crew from Northeast China. I paid them above market rates to finish quickly, asking them to install everything to Northeastern standards: double-glazed windows, wall insulation layers, and even a stove with a chimney. The front door was also replaced with an explosion-proof, well-sealed one. The workers were a bit puzzled. It's rare to install a stove in homes in this subtropical coastal city. I casually mentioned that I was just running errands for someone else, explaining that my boss's young son was sensitive to the cold. The boy constantly watches white noise videos and particularly enjoys the sound of a crackling fire, insisting on having one installed at home no matter what. The technician laughed and said it was clearly a case of having too much money to burn. However, he warned that burning coal indoors requires caution against carbon monoxide poisoning. I completely agreed and bought several high-sensitivity, battery-operated carbon monoxide detectors from him. At noon, Aurora returned with freshly purchased meat and vegetables. We had a simple lunch together before continuing our afternoon shopping for fuel and daily necessities. In the afternoon, Aurora went to the wholesale market to buy fuel and a generator. Meanwhile, I visited a major sporting goods store to purchase top-quality windbreakers, down jackets, as well as compact tents and cold-weather sleeping bags. Hello, is this piece of clothing also yours? This size might be a bit small for you. I froze for a moment. With Mom gone, there was no one left who would wear excess-sized clothes. Sorry, I took the wrong one. After buying clothes, I went to the supermarket to stock up on seasonings. Large quantities of chocolate, instant noodles, canned food, oil, flour, vacuum-packed rice and beans, sausages, and various dried goods with long shelf lives. I also grabbed several boxes of self-heating rice meals, just in case we ran out of fuel. They could keep us going for a while. No need to hoard large amounts of water. As long as you have fuel, you can melt snow and ice. Just stock up on extra water purification tablets. Also store some hard liquor like vodka. Drinking it can help warm your body. Passing by a store selling insulated bottles, I grabbed a few higher-priced thermal food jars, also took several down quilts and thick warm blankets. Need to replace the cotton bedding at home with fleece covers so it won't feel icy when lying down. Bought some electric blankets and heaters too, can use them before power goes out. For daily necessities, hot showers consume too much fuel, so we'll probably have to just wipe ourselves with wet towels. Got some sulfur soap for killing insects/mites, selenium sulfide shampoo, and alcohol wipes for when long periods without washing make skin/scalp itchy. Stocked toilet paper for 2 years. Also bought bidet attachments similar to nasal irrigators. These can hold warm water for cleaning private areas to prevent infections. To save money, I've long used menstrual cups during periods, and bought several new backups. They're reusable for 5 to 10 years with denture cleaning tablets or steam sterilization, but they require some skill. Aurora couldn't get used to them. so I prepared tampons according to her preference. MD, the tampons at the supermarket are way more expensive than online, but there's no time to order them now, so I'll just have to spend a bit more. Bought several boxes of various medications, can't be without fever reducers when catching a cold, and vitamins and antibiotics are also essential. A box of pencils and 10 notebooks, I can draw for Aurora when bored. And we can even play a game of Gamoku. Also picked up some classic novels and literature. There'll be mental sustenance during power outages. Bought plenty of small miscellaneous items too, like dry batteries, disaster candles, matches, and a hand crank flashlight. I had the supermarket staff help deliver the supplies to the south gate of the neighborhood, saying it was for preparing a homestay. This warehouse-style supermarket seems used to large bulk purchases and didn't ask much, just efficiently packed everything and loaded it up. The south gate is very close to our building, but residents usually use the north gate near the main road, so hardly anyone notices us. As I carried the box into the building unit, the hairs on the back of my neck suddenly stood on end, giving me the same feeling as being secretly watched by the homeroom teacher through the small back window during school days. I glanced sideways and saw a somewhat familiar figure. It appeared to be a tall woman with long hair, her silhouette somewhat resembling my university classmate Camille. When I turned to look, I found no one standing in that spot. Was I seeing things? Don't block the way, there's still a lot of stuff waiting to be moved in, Aurora said as she dragged in a sack of honeycomb briquettes. When you came in just now, did you see anyone outside? I thought I saw someone standing there, but when I looked again they were gone. I asked her while walking toward the elevator. No, don't scare me like this late at night. Aurora looked at me puzzled. Could it be because you haven't been sleeping well these past few days? Maybe you're just seeing things. Could I really have been seeing things? I rubbed my dry eyes and continued moving the supplies. The supplies were truly numerous and heavy. The two of us made countless trips, and after being unaccustomed to such intense physical labor for so long, I was panting from exhaustion. Aurora patted my shoulder. Hang in there, just one last trip. See that? If you don't study hard and amount to nothing, you'll end up doing dirty, exhausting manual labor like this. A passing auntie pointed at us while lecturing. She wore slippers and loose house clothes, leading a little girl, probably a resident out for an evening stroll in the compound. Aurora and I exchanged glances. We had been hauling coal all this time, both covered in dust and grime, our clothes reeking of sweat. The auntie gave us a disdainful look. Get lost. Don't dirty our clothes with your touch. Aurora was about to confront them when I quickly pulled her back. Now wasn't the time to stir up trouble. Aurora rolled her eyes dramatically and stormed into the apartment building, fuming. By the time we got home, we were too exhausted to tidy up, leaving everything piled in the living room. Dinner was instant noodles with ham and eggs. After eating, we lay on the couch for quite a while before finally recovering. Aurora said she wanted to take a nice, relaxing hot bath. I took out my phone and checked various apps, but there were no reports about the snowstorm online yet. The temperature on the weather app was only 2 degrees lower than yesterday. I walked out onto the large terrace on the duplex second floor. The wind tonight did feel chillier than usual, but would there really be a snowstorm? I tossed and turned all night. When I got up the next morning, I shivered from the cold as soon as I left the warmth of the blankets. The temperature had dropped from 28 degrees yesterday to just 10 degrees, and the sky outside was gloomy. Weren't you supposed to deliver it first thing this morning? Aurora was on the phone in the living room. You haven't even left yet. You promised it would definitely arrive by 7 a.m. When Aurora went to buy honeycomb coal yesterday afternoon, the boss said she came too late and this was all that remained. He charged us a hefty rush fee, promising to deliver the second batch first thing this morning. Aurora argued with him and hung up the phone. He said he's setting off now and should arrive around 8 o'clock. I'm a bit worried. This batch of coal is about 1/3 of my planned fuel reserves. If anything goes wrong, our survival time could be significantly reduced. After breakfast, Aurora started organizing the purchase supplies while I went downstairs to wait for the coal delivery truck at the south gate. By 8 o'clock, the temperature had dropped to 7 degrees, but the coal truck still hadn't arrived on time. I called the boss again, and he said the delivery was on its way and would arrive shortly. Get out, all of you, get out. A middle-aged man with a beer belly chased a mother and daughter out of the small courtyard on the first floor. You shameless bastard, you've got some vixen on the side and now you're abandoning your wife and child, the aunt shouted at the middle-aged man at the top of her lungs. Huh, isn't that the same aunt who called me and Aurora good-for-nothings yesterday? This is my damn house, and I'll let whoever I want live here. The HK hospital confirmed that Estelle is pregnant with my son, so of course I'm bringing her home to take good care of her. The little girl rushed forward and hugged his leg, begging her father not to drive her away, only to be slapped across the face. You worthless little burden, get out, you can hit me, but don't you dare hit my daughter. The aunt shielded the little girl behind her and began wrestling with the middle-aged man. I took a deep breath and turned around, wiping the cold sweat from my forehead, only to discover my palms bore crescent-shaped blood marks from where my own nails had dug in unnoticed. Some not-so-pleasant memories surged through my mind. Just then, a small truck approached from the empty road. I stepped out and waved at the driver. He stopped in front of me. "Did you order the coal?" I nodded and showed him the invoice. After confirming, he helped us unload the coal from the truck. I sent Aurora a message asking her to come down and help carry the coal. The driver placed a bag of coal at my feet. "Please check it. It's cold out, so I'll head off if everything's alright." "Is this all?" "Yeah, my truck's empty now. This last bag is yours." I lifted the bag to weigh it, at most 10 pounds, far less than what we ordered. When I looked up, the driver had already driven away, the truck bed indeed completely empty. I called the boss, who said, "Sorry about this. With the sudden temperature drop today, many people are paying extra for coal. We've got regular restaurant clients to supply, plus wanted to keep some for ourselves. Between all this, we just ran short. I'll give you a full refund for the second batch of coal. Consider that last bag as our gift to you." After saying this, they blocked me. While cursing him as a shady businessman, I called Aurora and told her not to come down, urging her to quickly contact other coal sellers to see if we could buy more. As soon as I entered, I saw that aunt sitting by the roadside holding her daughter and crying, with several bruises on her face. She cried and cursed. "What kind of terrible app is this? I've been trying to hail a cab for so long with no drivers coming." The little girl silently wiped her mother's tears. I ignored them and walked straight toward the apartment building, looking up at the sky. According to the time Aurora dreamed about, it would start snowing in another hour. When I reached the elevator, I stood there for a moment. The little girl's teary eyes lingered in my mind, and the figures of the aunt and my mother overlapped. I sighed, turned around, and walked back to them. The aunt gave me a disdainful look. "Stinky delivery guy, get lost. Don't think you can laugh at me. How far is your mother's place from here?" She sniffled. "None of your business. We live in a high-end community by Mirror Lake. You poor trash aren't even worth one of my fingers." I took the electric bike key off my keyring and tossed it to her. "There's a fully charged blue e-bike in the shed behind the building. It'll take you 40 minutes max to ride to Mirror Lake in this weather. You saw the forecast. If you want to live, take your daughter and ride home now." The aunt stood frozen staring at me, but her quick-witted daughter said, "Thank you, sister," and pulled her toward the shed to find the bike. Back home, Aurora was frantic, calling every coal vendor she knew. The abnormal morning chill had made people stock up on fuel, and coal was already sold out everywhere. Even if available, deliveries couldn't reach us before the heavy snow. We rushed to a nearby supermarket and only managed to buy some solid alcohol fuel. I knew I shouldn't have bought from his place yesterday. Aurora stomped her foot angrily. He swore up and down it would arrive this morning, and several customers claimed his coal was the best. They must all be the shop owner's plants. Forget it. Let's just focus on organizing our supplies now. If we ration carefully, we can make them last longer. At 9:21 a.m., the first snowflake drifted down from the sky. Children in the neighborhood excitedly ran downstairs to see the snow, while adults sensed something amiss and rushed to nearby supermarkets to stock up on supplies. The duplex penthouse we rented was quite spacious with ample storage. The second floor had a large 60-square-meter terrace. By collecting and melting the accumulated snow there, we secured a freshwater source. The balcony still has a wind-solar hybrid power system left by the previous homeowner, though it probably won't generate much electricity during extreme weather. We try to minimize electricity usage, relying mainly on coal for heating, while using power primarily for lighting and charging phones and radios. I've also purchased diesel and hand-crank generators as backups. There's an empty room on the second floor, perfect for storing raw meat and pickled vegetables, essentially a natural cold storage. I had the contractors replace the door between this room and the balcony with a blast-proof one like the main entrance, and reinforce the walls to prevent intruders from breaking in. Between the second-floor rooms and staircase, we installed heavy insulated doors to keep out the cold. The first floor has 3 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, and 2 bathrooms. I chose the smallest secondary bedroom to install a stove as our daily living space. Another bedroom is dedicated to fuel storage, equipped with fire extinguishers and smoke detectors. The remaining supplies are distributed throughout the living and dining areas. The master bedroom with an attached bathroom and small balcony is mainly used for waste management. Plastic packaging and stove ashes are neatly organized and stored in the room, taking up minimal space. All the meat I've stockpiled is boneless pork and beef. For vegetables, rice, and noodles, I cook only what I'll eat, saving leftovers for the next meal to minimize kitchen waste. Any remaining eggshells or fruit peels are directly thrown into the stove as fuel. Waste definitely can't be stored at home. After the bathroom water supply is cut off, I'll spread it on the small balcony to freeze. then crush it and scatter it downstairs during a blizzard. Tampons are also cut up and scattered downstairs. The main bedroom door has been replaced with a well-sealed one, so the smell shouldn't spread into the room in this weather. Aurora was silent for a moment. So those manual ice shavers and grinders you bought were for? I rubbed my nose awkwardly. 3/4 of feces is water. I figured if it's shaved finely enough, it could blend in with the heavy snow when thrown down. Although not very ethical, this is the only way to handle it now. If we just throw it out, over time if someone passes by here, they'll discover a huge pile of trash piled up downstairs. This building only has our household, and it's the one at the very edge of the neighborhood. The terrace faces an undeveloped grove, and judging by the wind direction, these things will most likely be blown there. Consider it fertilizing the backup fuel. I try to dump it at midnight. Usually neighbors wouldn't go out on a snowy, windy night anyway. Aurora sighed. I feel like I won't want to eat chocolate-shaved ice for the rest of my life. By nightfall, the temperature had already dropped to -10 degrees, an unprecedented low for the coastal area. Many northern cities saw temperatures plunge to -20 or 30 degrees. Both of our phones received text messages reminding citizens to reduce outdoor activities and stock up on supplies appropriately. The unusual temperature drop drove citizens to swarm into supermarkets for frenzied shopping, and supplies were quickly sold out. Those who went early had some gains, while those who went late found nothing left. What about the property management? Where the hell are they? Aren't you supposed to deliver supplies to homeowners in this kind of weather? Am I paying the property fees for nothing every month? A voice message popped up in the homeowners group. I clicked on his profile picture and took a look. Wasn't this the middle-aged man who drove his wife and daughter out this morning? He sent several more voice messages cursing people. One homeowner offered to sell him 5 packs of instant noodles for $50 with door-to-door delivery. He started berating them again, calling them selfish and opportunistic. I quietly turned on message notifications mute to avoid having to listen to his barking anymore. Aurora was watching a video tutorial on fire starting techniques, and I suggested she download it in case the internet goes out and she needs to continue watching. How am I supposed to live without electricity? Just sitting around at home all day would be so boring. Aurora added a few binge-worthy shows to her download list. Without power, I wouldn't be able to watch these either. And this too. I handed her the pencils and notebooks I bought. I also brought your colored paints. There by the dining table, Aurora grinned and drew 2 little figures on the first page of the notebook. For dinner, we had congee hot pot. Even though there weren't many people in the nearby buildings and our exhaust vent faced outward from the complex, I was still worried that the strong smell of food might draw attention. The ingredients were mainly fresh beef and vegetables. It won't be easy to get fresh meat and greens later. Only frozen meat and pickled vegetables will be available. Meat without its flavor, vegetables without their taste. For a native of Y province like me, this is pure torture. The fragrant rice congee was served, and we first added the oysters and fish slices that the kind vendor had already shelled and deboned for us. I initially wanted to buy more shellfish but reconsidered due to the hassle of disposing of the waste. It's the apocalypse. After all, simplicity is key. The fish slices were tender and smooth, a perfect match with the dipping sauce made of sand ginger, lime, and chili. After enhancing the flavor, you can add the meat. Beef should be coated with egg wash before going into the pot and shouldn't be cooked for too long. After finishing the meat, blanch some greens. Only the natural taste of fresh ingredients can awaken my taste buds. Numbed by takeout and instant food, come to think of it. It's been a while since I've had a proper meal. After work, I'm usually too exhausted to cook anything beyond basic survival meals. The sound of wind and snow mixed with the bubbling of the hot pot. The snow outside the window grew heavier, and a biting cold wind seeped through the gaps. Aurora shivered. Later, I'll have to seal the window cracks with plastic sheeting. I served her a bowl of congee water with a sprinkle of white pepper. This bowl of congee, infused with the essence of various ingredients, is the soul of congee-based hot pot. My mom used to love dipping fried dough sticks in this kind of congee. Eating hot pot in this weather is oddly satisfying, like wrapping yourself in a blanket with the AC on in summer. It's a unique kind of pleasure. After dinner, we sealed all the window gaps and hung thickened blackout curtains. After washing up, Aurora set up a tent on the bed to prevent heat loss. While I laid out an electric blanket and thick bedding, I crawled into the down sleeping bag and lay down, finally able to get some proper rest. After a few minutes, I suddenly bolted upright from under the covers. Did you dream about when the power outage would start? It seems like it's been a week since the snow started. I'm not really sure. It couldn't be today, could it? Aurora yawned. What if it's different from your dream? If the power goes out and the temperature drops in the middle of the night, could we freeze to death in our sleep? Maeve, don't work yourself up like this. Aurora pushed me back down and casually picked up the alarm clock from the nightstand. Here's what we'll do. I'll set the alarm to check every 2 hours. Let's both get some proper rest today, and we can start taking turns keeping watch tomorrow. I massaged my sore shoulders and agreed to her suggestion. Aurora turned off the light, and I quickly fell asleep, waking several times during the night. Thankfully, the power stayed on. When the 8 a.m. alarm rang, the sky outside remained as dark as night, the snow was heavier than yesterday, and the temperature had dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius. Relevant departments are striving to maintain the operation of power supply equipment, with countless maintenance workers still working outdoors in such weather. Several areas experienced power outages during the night, but they were repaired by dawn. The central government announced the activation of national grain reserves, but it's not easy to quickly deliver food to everyone's hands now. Breakfast was fried flour paste. Heat flour in a non-stick pan over low heat until it turns yellow, then remove. Transfer the cooked flour to a bowl, add brown sugar, pour in hot water, and stir well before eating. My mother used to make this snack for me when I was a child. I happened to cook some extra and stored it in an airtight jar for future breakfasts. After the meal, I changed into warm clothes and walked onto the second-floor balcony where a thick layer of snow had already accumulated. I collected the top layer of snow while shoveling the part in direct contact with the ground down to the lower level. That middle-aged man in the property management group was raging again, saying the snowdrifts had buried their front door. At noon, the property management called to ask if I had moved in, saying they needed to survey each household supplies. I said there's no way, we just moved the renovation materials in the day before yesterday. The snow started before we even began construction. Then I heard someone on the phone yelling about broken pipes. The property management said they'd handle it and quickly hung up. When viewing the place, I was being cautious, constantly complaining about the outdated decor, how the bathroom wasn't even wet-dry separated, and specifically asked the landlord if major renovations were allowed, so the property management always thought I wouldn't move in until after renovations. I even repackaged all the materials outside the south gate before bringing them in, with hardly anyone noticing. This building is both on the outskirts and uninhabited. As long as we hide all traces of living here, no one will likely come again. Starting today, we'll gradually adjust our schedules. I'll sleep from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Aurora will sleep from midnight to 8 a.m., ensuring there's always at least one person awake in the house at all times. This way we can prevent power outages at night, and after the complete blackout, someone will still need to tend to the stove fire. The temperature dropped rapidly, reaching minus 50 degrees within days. On the fourth day of the snow disaster, the residential water supply was cut off. On the sixth day, both internet and electricity collapsed one after another. The power briefly returned on the 8th night, only to fail again by the afternoon of the 10th day. Heavy snow blocked all roads, cutting the once bustling city into isolated islands. People could only remain trapped in their homes, consuming their resources without replenishment. After several days without power, I used a rechargeable hair clipper to give myself a buzz cut for easier daily cleaning. The shortest I'll go is a bob. Aurora turned to look at me. You'd better not secretly shave my head. Got it. Look, I don't even have clippers, I'll just trim your hair with scissors. In school, due to regulations, we could only keep our hair short, not past the eyebrows in front or ears and back, so Aurora cherished her hair especially. After starting university, she's kept it waist length ever since. After a power outage, our staple food is usually cooked in a thermal cooker. Pour boiling water into the thermal cup to preheat it for a few minutes, then pour out the water, add raw rice, and fill it with boiling water again. After sealing the lid, let it sit for 4 to 5 hours, and congee will be ready. Although the texture isn't great and the rice often ends up undercooked, this method saves fuel. We also have long-lasting potatoes, taro, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, and instant noodles as supplementary staples. The main dishes usually consist of various combinations of pork, beef, pickled vegetables, or freeze-dried vegetables, paired with different sauces to go with the rice, or simply heated canned food. We also take vitamins regularly in measured doses. I've prepared dried fruits and canned fruit and syrup that can be soaked in water as dietary supplements. On a bitterly cold midnight, I sat wrapped in a duvet by the stove, reading a book by the light of a hand-cranked flashlight. The fire crackled as a can of fermented black bean and dace fish stew heated on the stove, paired with plain congee, a simple yet satisfying meal. The stove usually also held a few sweet potatoes and chestnuts Aurora had tucked inside. There was also coffee, which I hadn't prepared. Aurora bought it. She always teased that my veins ran with coffee instead of blood. Truthfully, I don't love coffee that much. I just use it to maintain my overachiever's sleep schedule. Mom always says she loves the taste of coffee, but she can't sleep after drinking it, so she can only take a small sip. I caressed Mom's portrait. Why don't you visit me in my dreams? Do you want me to forget you completely? The outside temperature remained around minus 50 degrees. At first, the snowstorm raged day and night, but later brief intervals began to appear between the storms. The snow piled up higher and higher downstairs. It seems this disaster won't be over any time soon. The marinated pork belly sizzles as it's grilled, paired with garlic slices and chili powder. As you chew, the rich fat bursts in your mouth, filling it with meaty aroma, while the crispy, charred skin adds another layer of texture. The only downside is the lack of lettuce, so we have to use pickled vegetables to cut through the greasiness. However, today's staple is different from usual. Instead of the porridge or half-cooked rice from a thermal cooker, we have fluffy rice made in an electric rice cooker. Yes, the power is back. It's been 8 months since the snowstorm began, and this is only the second time electricity has been restored. The last power restoration was 3 months ago, when the snow stopped for a full 15 days and temperatures rose significantly. Radio broadcasts mentioned that Binhai was seizing the opportunity to rush repairs on power lines and transport supplies. Everyone thought the disaster was coming to an end. But in the early hours of the 16th day, the blizzard returned with a vengeance. The power grid collapsed again, and the roads that had been painstakingly cleared were once more buried under thick snow. Overnight, all the hard work was rendered futile. Today marks the 10th day since the snow stopped, and power has been restored once more. Though no one knows how long it will last, it at least proves that people have never given up hope. According to radio reports, shelters are being built across various regions, and Binhai has set up over a dozen emergency food distribution points. However, with roads still impassable, venturing outside remains difficult. I've also heard numerous cases where people were killed in fights over supplies. In extreme situations, people would do anything for a bite to eat. The radio warned citizens to keep their doors locked and be wary of outsiders. Fortunately, our remote neighborhood had few residents to begin with, and no one knows we live here, so it's unlikely anyone would come to rob us. I wore headphones and listened to the radio while keeping watch all night. In the morning, I took a comfortable hot shower, scrubbing away all the accumulated grime from these past days. After the shower, I crawled into my warm, cozy bed and quickly fell asleep. Maeve. I don't know how long it had been when I faintly heard Aurora calling me. Opening my eyes, I asked, "Is it time for me to get up?" "No." Someone's knocking on the door outside, our door. In an instant, my drowsiness vanished as I shot up from under the covers like a sit-up. I glanced at the alarm clock. It was 2 p.m. The nightmare-like howling of the wind outside the window started again. The blizzard had returned. The small desk lamp I'd left on before sleeping had gone out. Looks like the power was out again. Aurora looked flustered. What should we do? Could they be here to rob our supplies? I thought it couldn't be possible. No one in this neighborhood knew we had moved in. Without time to think it through, I grabbed the machete and hatchet from under the bed, tools I'd prepared for gathering firewood when fuel ran out, and also handy for self-defense. I told Aurora to bring the fire extinguisher from the other room. My mom had once forwarded me a short video about using fire extinguishers for self-defense. This thing could catch an attacker completely off guard. The knocking continued, but the door remained sturdy. The walls had been thickened for insulation, making forced entry difficult. I made a silencing gesture, praying that the person outside would assume the place was unoccupied and leave. When receiving no response, only the sound of our heartbeats remained in the dim living room. Maeve, Aurora, don't hide inside without making a sound. I know you're home. She actually called out our names accurately. If you don't speak up, I'll tell the whole neighborhood you've hoarded supplies and let everyone come take them. She spoke with a strong nasal tone, yet the voice felt strangely familiar. I suddenly remembered the figure I saw at the base of the apartment building the night I was moving coal. Was that her? Camille? I tentatively called out to her. Camille was my college classmate, having transferred to our major only in our sophomore year. She came from a wealthy family and was rumored to be related to one of the university administrators. That year, my grandmother fell ill and was hospitalized. I worked part-time to save money while pushing myself to the limit to secure the top scholarship. I should have ranked ahead of her, but the teacher of the final subject, trying to curry favor with the leadership, gave her full marks for attendance despite her being late several times, while deducting my attendance score to just over 60 under the pretext of not receiving my last assignment, even though I was always the first to arrive in class. In the end, she won the award, while I could only receive a lower-tier scholarship. Although I knew it was the sycophantic teacher who caused this, I couldn't help but hold a grudge against her. After that, our relationship remained strained, and I often competed with her over academic achievements. After graduating with my bachelor's degree, I started working immediately to earn money early, while she went on to pursue graduate studies at the best university in Binhai. Our paths never crossed again. It's me, don't worry, I mean no harm, I just want to make an exchange with you. Camille said her family bought an apartment in this complex years ago, on the 4th floor of our building, since it's close to one of her university's branch campuses. She occasionally stays here during holidays. She was the one who saw me at the building entrance that day. At first she found it strange seeing me hauling coal, but after the sudden temperature drop in Bin Hai overnight, she realized something was wrong and followed my example by stockpiling fuel. However, she didn't buy enough food and wanted to trade some coal for provisions. "Why are you here alone? Where are your parents?" Aurora asked suspiciously. "They were vacationing abroad. And I originally wanted to fly over to join them. I heard it's still quite warm there now, but unfortunately, the flight got cancelled." I said I needed to think about it. Coincidentally, I had just charged the video doorbell last night, so I could see that she was alone within the camera's view and wasn't carrying any weapons. Camille is 176 centimeters tall and has been working out since college, often showing off her muscles in social media posts, but now she looks much thinner. Her complexion isn't great, and she keeps wiping her nose. "You have fuel, so how did you end up freezing like this?" "Damn it, I was planning to wash my hair that hadn't been washed for months while we still had electricity, but the power went out halfway through, leaving me sitting by the stove drying it for ages." I told Aurora to keep watch here and not let her open the door, while I went back inside to take stock of our fuel and food supplies. Our food reserves are actually quite ample. We could easily last another year or more, but neither Aurora nor I have experience heating with coal. We originally planned for insufficient fuel reserves, and after losing that second batch, even with careful rationing we'll run out in about 2 months. I'm preparing to trade Camille some frozen meat, pickled vegetables, and rice/flour for 2 months' worth of fuel. She agreed immediately and raced home to move the fuel. I thought about it and packed some fever reducers and vitamins, adding a few packets of ginger tea to ward off the cold. Both of us were nervous during the exchange of supplies, even wearing masks and goggles left over from the pandemic. Aurora held the fire extinguisher while watching the surveillance feed, afraid someone might ambush us in the hallway. I wielded an axe in one hand and used the other to quickly toss out the bag of packed food, then swiftly pulled in the large box of coal and shut the door. I took inventory. The coal was not only sufficient in weight but also of good quality, and it came with over a dozen packs of matches. Camille opened the bag and glanced inside, then looked up at the camera. "Maeve, thank you." The snowstorm continued relentlessly, leaving only endless static on the radio. Who knows how many lives and efforts were reduced to ashes in this latest power outage. Every time the snow stops, we pray that the next storm will never come, but each time, the snow only stops for a day or two, serving no purpose other than making the temperature drop even lower. I swung the shovel, clearing excess snow from the roof and terrace down below. The accumulated snow piled up layer upon layer, forming dune-like shapes so bright they made it hard to keep your eyes open. I yearned desperately to see the sun, but the sky remains perpetually overcast. I've begun sleeping poorly, with countless thoughts raging in my mind. Even the ticking of the clock's second hand has become deafeningly loud. During dinner one evening, Aurora suddenly said to me, "How about we swap our rest periods? I feel like you haven't been quite yourself lately." Really, these past few days, you've been waking up, moving all the piled coal from the spare bedroom downstairs to weigh it, then stacking it back up, repeating this 7 or 8 times in an afternoon. Same with the food supplies. You've practically worn the rice sack smooth from handling it so much. Normally at this time, you'd either be reading or pedaling the manual generator to charge the radio. Just look at how blackened your hands have become. I held out my hands, both palms stained pitch black, with coal dust packed under every fingernail. Before she pointed it out, I hadn't even realized how many times I'd repeated these actions, just compulsively driven by anxiety to keep verifying how long our supplies would last. You're always on night watch, awake either at midnight or dusk. Though there's no sun now, day and night still feel different. From now on I'll take the night shifts, and when we're both awake in the afternoon, don't stay silent. Chatting more will lift her spirits. Aurora looked at me with concern in her eyes. I used to be the calmest one, never showing anxious emotions like this before. I smiled bitterly. In less than a month at most, our fuel will run out. I used to think we could chop branches from the woods behind us for fuel, but now the snow has piled up to the 3rd floor. We can't even walk over there, let alone cut trees. If the snow never stops, we'll eventually be trapped here to die. The only difference from the ending in your dream is swapping a 1-bedroom urn for a penthouse duplex ice coffin. No, there's a huge difference. The fact that we've survived this long is already a stroke of luck amidst misfortune. Don't think about the future yet, just live each day well. Who knows, maybe we'll be rescued by the time our fuel runs out. I remained silent, and she continued, "Why don't you find something else to do to distract yourself? Like me, I paint every day, and it makes me feel much better." I use the manual generator to charge my phone. Listening repeatedly to the WeChat voice messages my mother had sent me before she passed away, working overtime again, don't push yourself so hard, make sure to rest properly when you have time, salary, is it really that important, mom just wants you to be happy on your own, haha, that outfit only looks good on you young people, mom's getting old, mom, I'll come to keep you company. A week later, the rare break in snowfall lasted until the third day. With temperatures rising to over -30 degrees, Aurora said we should eat something nice to celebrate, so I opened 2 packs of self-heating hot pot that I usually can't bear to eat. The spicy aroma filled the entire room. It's been a long time since I had such strongly flavored food. I was so overwhelmed by the heat that I drank 3 glasses of water in a row. Aurora, what are you looking at? Come over and eat. Aurora was standing by the window looking downstairs. Doesn't that person look like Camille? I walked to the window and saw a person in a red ski jacket gliding towards us on skis, like a flame in the snow. She carried a large bundle of firewood on her back and wore a pair of oversized sunglasses. Couldn't see her face clearly, but judging by her figure, it must be her, I commented while eating. So brave to venture out in such deep snow. TSK, why didn't I think of buying skis? If we went out now, we'd probably be buried alive in the snow. The person suddenly waved at us. Confirming it was indeed Camille, Aurora waved back in response. Camille grinned widely, raising both hands to flash us a peace sign, then quite stylishly, tumbled into a snowdrift. My heart skipped a beat watching, but fortunately she quickly stood up while cursing loudly. She slid downstairs and slipped in through a window that had been broken by the wind. Shortly after she returned, there was a knock at our door. It's me, Camille. I need to borrow your rooftop. Aurora hesitated and looked at me. After checking the peephole to confirm there were no other people or weapons, I said, let her in. I still want to trade some fuel with her. I won't come in. These firewoods are for you. Camille patted the large bundle of firewood she had brought. The snow downstairs is so deep. How did you manage to get firewood? I took the firewood. It was quite a load, enough to last us several days. All the shorter trees in the neighborhood are buried, luckily. There's still a pine forest near the park. I didn't even see a single bird along the way. While chopping, I almost got buried by the snow several times. Thank goodness I tied a sturdy lifeline to the thickest, tallest tree trunk before starting. The aroma of spicy hot pot still lingered in the air when I heard a few rumbling sounds. Camille embarrassedly rubbed her head. Would you like to come in and have some? Aurora suggested. Then I won't stand on ceremony. I have another piece of good news to share with you. Camille walked in with a smile. I warily closed the door, better safe than sorry. If she had conspired with others to ambush us in the blind spot of the hallway, we'd both be done for. Camille wolfed down the food, coughing from choking. Cough, cough. It's been so long since I've had a full meal. How about we trade some supplies? I happen to have food here, and you've got fuel. I seized the moment to propose an exchange. No need, no need. Camille waved her hand. The fuel we've replenished this time is enough until we're rescued, and if I ration my food carefully, it'll last too. I'm just so hungry today because I had to make several trips back and forth carrying firewood, which really drained my energy. We can be rescued. Do you have news on that? Aurora exclaimed with joy. I finally managed to fix that broken satellite phone the night before last and got in touch with my parents. They pulled some strings and found out that meteorologists predict the snowstorm won't return after the current pause, and the disaster will end within half a month. Various departments have also started preparing rescue operations. That's why I said we need to use your rooftop. We have to create a conspicuous marker up there, otherwise the helicopters won't know there are survivors here when they come. Are meteorologists reliable? I hesitated a bit. Reliable? That's our family's most solid connection. Plus, the government has already taken action. If nothing unexpected happens, we should have power back within a couple of days. They wouldn't start repairing power lines on the third day of the snowstorm without being absolutely certain. We began searching for materials to make an SOS signal. This fabric is quite vibrant in color, just a bit small. Camille pulled out several pieces of purple fabric from the bottom of the suitcase. I silently took the fabric, which was the leftover scraps from the custom cheapao I had made for my mother. Originally, that cheapao was meant to be my mother's birthday gift, but she passed away. When I returned to my hometown, I burned the cheapao for her, leaving only these few remnants, such familiar patterns. Aurora stared at the fabric for a long time, as if suddenly remembering something. Maeve, the woman in my dream was wearing clothes just like this. I was puzzled. What woman? It's that precognitive dream I had, where every time the two of us end up lying on the ground, a woman's voice would say, run, go, Don't look at me, don't turn back, you must live on. I couldn't see the woman's face, only the hem of her skirt. She was wearing clothes made of this exact same fabric. The prophecy of the apocalypse was told to me by my mother. She wanted me to live well, yet I nearly chose to give up. I rubbed the small piece of fabric between my fingers as my vision gradually blurred with tears. Hey, why are you crying all of a sudden? Camille flusteredly searched for tissues for me. It's fine, let's go out and make markers together. I think these will work perfectly. Aurora picked up some light-colored bedsheets and nudged Camille toward the stairs. Aurora patted my shoulder. If something's upsetting you, just let it out. Don't keep it bottled up. Only my sobs remained in the room. They used red paint and fluorescent paint to write large SOS signs on both sides of the bedsheet, making it visible day and night. There happened to be a tall pole on the terrace, originally used to support the fan of a wind-solar hybrid power system. That power generation equipment had long been broken, so the pole became our flagpole. Camille went back after hanging the flag, and I gave her some pumpkins and chocolates in return. In the early hours of the next morning, snowflakes began to fall outside again. Fortunately, it wasn't the usual blizzard this time, lasting only a little over an hour before stopping. On the 5th day after the snow stopped, the power was finally restored. The temperature slowly rose to just over -30 degrees, and the snow accumulation downstairs seemed to have decreased slightly. The radio broadcast news that rescue operations had fully commenced. They would gradually dispatch helicopters to transport survivors to official bases, and all citizens were advised to stay alert. Aurora and I gathered and packed all the remaining food supplies at home, especially the chocolates and self-heating meals I had been reluctant to eat. These would remain precious resources for a long time to come. On the 22nd day after the snow stopped, Aurora and I roasted pumpkins at home. The small-sized kabocha squash had its central seeds scooped out with a spoon, was cut into small pieces, and roasted with a bit of salted butter on the stove, resulting in an exceptionally sweet, powdery, and glutinous taste. After the meal, as I was about to wash the pots and dishes on the patio using snow water, I suddenly heard the roar of a helicopter in the sky. Waving my arms and shouting downstairs, I yelled, "Aurora! Aurora! A helicopter is coming, we're saved!" After confirming the pilot had seen me, I hurried downstairs to put on warm clothes and grabbed my pre-packed backpack. Aurora went to fetch Camille, and the three of us boarded the helicopter, safely reaching the shelter base. The base was already stocked with ample food and fuel. Lying on the bed in my small room, I felt an unprecedented sense of security. I finally dreamed of my mother. In the dream, I walked a long distance with her before smiling and saying goodbye. Binhai City's population plummeted by 80%. Only 5 people from our entire neighborhood survived. Besides our trio, the other 2 were a barbecue restaurant owner and a vendor specializing in slow-cooked soups, perfect for both fuel and ingredients. They had moved all their shop supplies home when the snow first started, thus surviving the disaster. After that, Binhai never experienced blizzards again, but severe floods emerged once the snow melted, after recuperating for a while. Aurora and I joined the rescue efforts alongside other survivors. In the train carriage heading north for relief work, I encountered Camille again. Camille sat down beside me, feeling somewhat uncomfortable. I shifted slightly away. "Now that transportation has been restored, why don't you go seek refuge with your parents? What's the point of taking refuge? I've been doing it for so long that I'm thoroughly sick of it." She paused, then added, "Maeve, I know we had some conflicts before, but now we're both starting from scratch, with no differences in family background." Smiling, she extended her hand to me. "This time I want to compete with you fairly. Let's see who can save more people." Indeed, everything was starting from zero. I reached out and shook her hand. "I won't lose to you this time." The weather gradually returned to normal, social order was restored, and reconstruction began on houses collapsed by heavy snow across regions. With power and water systems repaired to their original state, by the time the disaster had completely ended and I returned to the apartment allocated by Binhai Municipal Government, it was already summer of 2025. While changing clothes after showering, I was startled by the residual heat on my garments. Why were they so scalding hot? Opening the window, I saw the blazing sun outside and realized the clothes had been heated by the sunlight. When I turned on the faucet, the tap water came out warm too, as the exterior pipes had been baked by the sun. It felt like another era as I remembered every past summer being like this. This was how August should be. This was the true summer of Binhai. Only at this moment did I truly believe the disaster was finally over, that I had genuinely escaped from that year-long nightmare. Aurora walked in carrying numerous bags. She now lives right next door to me. "It's so hot, so hot." I bought lots of cold drinks. "Come have some quickly." Aurora placed the plastic bags on the table, containing a large watermelon and several boxes of ice cream and popsicles. I pointed at the box of chocolate shaved ice. "Didn't you say you'd never eat this again for the rest of your life?" "Fuck off. That's all in the past. Don't bring up those disgusting memories of mine. Yes, everything is in the past now. The seasons no longer freeze in winter. Time begins to flow, and all things will move forward. So will I. Story 2. Recently, temperatures in the neighboring country soared to 50 degrees Celsius, but a country remained unaffected due to the barrier of mountain ranges. It was only I who, in a rush of panic, bought supplies planning to return to my rural hometown for refuge. This is because I have been reborn. In another month, a global heatwave will erupt, turning the world into a living hell, unexpectedly. Just as I had returned to my hometown, I became a target. I woke up abruptly, drenched in sweat. The sensation of my blood being slowly drained still vivid in my memory. Almost in a daze, I stretched out my hands. The skin on my arms was as smooth as jade, unmarked by any wounds. Looking around, I found myself lying in a rented room, with the air conditioner quietly emitting cool air, making the room temperature quite comfortable. Strange, I thought I had already died. I pinched myself hard. It hurt. Suddenly, a wave of exhilaration washed over me, and a word formed in my mind: reborn. I leaped out of bed and found my phone on the floor. It displayed the date, 2024, 1 month before the apocalypse of extreme heat. I was nearly jumping with excitement, but then I remembered Borg, my boyfriend, still gaming in the next room, and I restrained myself. Borg and I had been together since university, and everyone around us thought we would eventually marry. That was my belief too. But it was this very man who, desperate to survive, had cut open my veins and used my blood to sustain himself until rescue arrived. I swallowed hard and rushed to the kitchen, grabbing a bottle of mineral water from the fridge and downing it in one go. Since the apocalypse, I had never enjoyed drinking water so freely. In the apocalypse, even a simple cup of water was sold at exorbitant prices, with people fighting bloody battles over it. In my past life, my habit of stockpiling meant we had plenty of supplies at home. I thought with these supplies, Borg and I wouldn't have to fight others, but Borg had taken pity on Sigrid, the girl next door, and without my knowledge, had given away most of our supplies to her. As I gulped down the water, Borg came out of the study, puzzled, and asked, "Drinking cold water this late, won't you get a stomach ache tomorrow?" The Borg of my past life always appeared gentle and considerate, which is why I never knew he had been unfaithful with Sigrid next door. After the apocalypse began, he gave most of our supplies to Sigrid and even brought her to our home to share our already scarce food after she carelessly squandered the precious supplies. Later, when food was scarce, that beast Borg offered me to a man on the second floor in exchange for life-saving water and bread for himself and Sigrid. Looking at Borg's disgusting face, I coldly rolled my eyes and passed by him into the room, confused. He scratched his head and said, "What's gotten into you?" "Oh, by the way, I have a business trip in a few days. I'll be gone for half a month." Yeah, right, a business trip. As if I didn't know he'd been fired from his job. He probably wanted to use the trip as a cover to go on a vacation with Sigrid, but Borg being away did make it easier for me to act. I waved dismissively and said, "Whatever you want." Back in my room, I took out a piece of paper and began to plan. I couldn't stay in the city. The previous apocalypse had arrived swiftly, and electricity is now only available for a few hours each day. Such towering buildings simply can't last long without power. Moreover, the living space in the city is so limited that it's not just difficult to stockpile substantial supplies, but also the population is quite mixed. Who would have thought that a murderer would be living in our neighborhood, as a woman alone with substantial supplies? How can I ensure my safety in such an environment? I crossed off the city from my list, and then an idea struck me. If the city is not an option, I could go back to my hometown, located deep in the mountains. My hometown is particularly cool. I still remember how my grandfather used to take me there to escape the summer heat, while it was scorching hot outside. People in the mountains needed blankets to sleep at night. Importantly, over the years, most of the villagers have moved to the city for work. The last time I went home to pay respects to my grandparents, only the elderly remained in the village. I felt I would be safer in that environment. Without hesitation, I noted down some essential supplies on my phone's memo and planned to go shopping the next day. Due to my anxiety, I couldn't sleep all night and only managed to doze off when dawn was breaking. The next day, I inevitably arrived late, but at this point, I had nothing to fear. I slapped my resignation letter on my bald boss's head and went back to my desk to pack my things. My colleague tried to persuade me to endure a little longer, pointing out how hard it is to find a job these days and not to harm my own prospects out of anger. I looked at him calmly and said, "I've made up my mind to resign." "You should prepare yourself too." Confused, my colleague asked what was wrong. Struggling, but still holding on to the idea that saving one more person is worth it, I said, "Didn't you hear about the neighboring area hitting 50 degrees recently? I'm a bit worried, so I'm planning to go home to rest." My colleague looked at me speechlessly, clearly not taking my words to heart. Indeed, today's highest temperature was only 32 degrees. Nowhere near the heatwave levels, I sighed deeply. Quickly packed up my things and rushed to the market. In a world like this, water and food are paramount. I wasn't too worried about water. If I remembered correctly, there was a particularly deep lake not far from my hometown. All I needed to buy was a water purification device, flour, rice, various canned goods, instant foods. I felt like I hadn't shopped in centuries, impulsively wanting to throw everything into my cart, attracting frequent sideways glances from other customers. To avoid drawing attention, I controlled the number of items I purchased and planned to visit several supermarkets to get everything I needed, but at checkout, I was stunned. After buying these items, there was hardly any money left in my account. I suddenly remembered what Borg had said. "Honey, let's keep our salaries separate. I'll save up to marry you, and you handle our daily expenses." Thinking back, I wanted to slap myself for believing him at such a young age. Looking back now, I really was a fool, but it was too late for regrets. I had no choice but to drag my purchases home. Borg, used to my habit of stocking up, didn't suspect a thing and continued playing video games on the couch. "Why did you buy so much? How much did that cost?" Borg disapprovingly asked. Usually, I would have argued with him, but now I didn't want to waste time on him. I ran back to my room, sadly realizing that I only had a few thousand left on all my cards. What should I do now? Is fate trying to destroy me? Suddenly, I had an idea. I opened my phone and downloaded several apps for small loans, but I wasn't foolish enough to use my own identity for the loans. The world would return to normal eventually, and I wasn't about to suffer for it. I took advantage of the moment when Borg was engrossed in his game, made up a story in a few words, and managed to have him unwittingly authorize it using facial recognition. Thankfully, he trusted me enough not to be suspicious. With a fuller wallet, I resumed my shopping spree. After Borg packed up and left, I started my journey back home in a rented car. I was an orphan, raised by my grandparents from a very young age. However, they passed away before I grew up, leaving me only the family home. The old house was just as I imagined, cool and sparsely populated, though a bit dilapidated due to neglect. I spent a long time cleaning the rooms and stored the supplies I bought in the basement. The basement of our house was dug very deep and was exceptionally cool. Entering it, I couldn't help but shiver. Excellent. This meant that when the high temperatures hit and the rooms became uninhabitable, I could temporarily survive in the basement. I bought a few large flower pots, filled them with soil from the yard, and planned to grow some vegetables. Since vegetables don't keep well, I didn't buy many. For the foreseeable future, I would have to live off these potted plants. After setting up a water purification system, I went to the lakeside to figure out how to run a water pipe. That's when I realized, to my horror, that the vast lake had shrunk to a small pond. Where was my lake? My huge lake? My heart seemed to stop beating for several moments. This was bad. I hadn't prepared any water storage at all. I hurried back home and drove to the nearest town, quickly, before the heat wave hit. I needed to buy a couple of water storage barrels, though there was a well at home. Just to be safe, I decided to get 2 barrels. Fortunately, I managed to buy the barrels without any issues. The shop offered to deliver them, but fearing exposure, I declined. In the following days, I checked my supplies daily and rushed to town to buy anything that was missing. Everything was proceeding smoothly until one day, I saw a medium-sized dog in the yard. I tried to chase it away for a long time, but the dog refused to leave. I crouched down and negotiated from a distance. "Hey, why don't you leave? It's almost the end of the world, and I can barely take care of myself. You should find another good home." The dog blinked its big eyes and quietly nestled in a corner. After a long while, I sighed. Well, since we've met, it must be fate. However, the dog's appearance reminded me of something. Our yard walls were too low. If any bad people were to come, it would be unimaginable. Eventually, I contacted a renovation team and paid double the price to have the entire house reinforced. I also had security cameras installed. As the days passed, the doomsday of high temperatures drew nearer. The sun, like a massive furnace, mercilessly scorched the earth, and news of people dying from the heat came from many places. Although my old home is nestled in the mountains, I've been feeling a distinct heat these past few days. This morning, I got out of bed early to place the solar panels on the roof. By doing so, I could gather enough electricity for a day's use of the household appliances and even afford to luxuriously run the air conditioning for a few hours in the evening. One morning, just as I was climbing onto the roof to reposition the solar panels, my phone suddenly rang, facing an unfamiliar number. I pressed the answer button with some confusion, only to hear an elderly voice ask, "Sybil, when did you get back?" I was taken aback. It was the village chief's voice. My home is quite secluded with hardly any neighbors nearby, and I had avoided people when I went out these last few days. How did the village chief know I was back? I paused for a moment, then decided to play dumb. What? I haven't been back. Grandpa Booth, are you sure you're not mistaken? It seemed like Grandpa Booth slapped his thigh in realization on the other end, saying, "Oh, I saw you on the surveillance. What are you doing on the roof so early in the morning? And what's with those patches on your roof? The village is about to be reviewed for the Beautiful Countryside Award. Don't stir up trouble." My mind exploded like a bomb had gone off, going blank in an instant. Surveillance. Grandpa Booth has installed surveillance. Then all my recent activities were exposed. Grandpa Booth kept rambling on the phone, and I felt my heart nearly stopping. "Grandpa Booth, where did you see this surveillance?" I had to clarify, and also find out who else knew about the supplies hidden at my home. Grandpa Booth replied, "I saw it right here in the village. Didn't you hear what I just told you? Young people should contribute more to the village. Since you're free, come and lend a hand." I hummed in agreement, wondering when surveillance cameras had been installed in the village, then climbed down from the roof and headed to the village committee. The village committee was essentially just two large bungalows. I used to play here as a child, and it surprised me that after so many years, nothing had changed, or so I thought. As I stepped into the village committee, the difference was palpable. The 100-inch TV, surveillance cameras everywhere, and the crystal-clear image quality. If the surveillance in residential areas was this good, I wouldn't have lost so many deliveries. Stunned, I was brought back to reality when Grandpa Booth called up to me. I shifted my gaze and asked, "Grandpa Booth, when were these cameras installed?" Grandpa Booth replied, "They've been here for a while." Oh, I told them it's a waste since us old folks wouldn't know how to use them, but the higher-ups insisted, saying it was mandatory. As I helped Grandpa Booth organize some documents, I casually asked, "Since the cameras are so clear, did you see where my dog has gone?" "I couldn't find him this morning." Grandpa Booth frowned and said, "You have a dog? I didn't know. I don't watch the surveillance every day, just happened to today and saw you." Relieved, I finally relaxed. There was quite a lot of data to sort through in the village, and I helped Grandpa Booth all day. When we finished, Grandpa Booth warmly invited me to his home for dinner. I shook my head and politely declined, watching Grandpa Booth's unsteady steps. I said, "Grandpa Booth, recently the weather has been getting hotter. You should avoid going out too much." Grandpa Booth waved his hand dismissively and said, "I know, I won't wander far. I just want to check on a few elderly folks in our village who are alone. They're old and without anyone by their side." I can't help but worry. I fell silent, aware that the severe heat was imminent. Even with the mountains as a natural barrier, how long could our little village hold out? What would become of these elderly people? I slapped my cheeks lightly, thinking to myself, "Sybil, you should take care of yourself first. Don't repeat your past life's mistake. You tried to save Sigurd out of kindness, and look what happened. You ended up losing your life." After getting home, I cooked myself a bowl of noodles. Holding the bowl, I ate while watching the drama series I had saved for dining. No, I'm not worried about food, water, or electricity. The only thing I'm concerned about is boredom. I've downloaded many TV shows and novels, filling up the memory on my phone and tablet. I hope I can get through this heat smoothly. After watching 2 more episodes, I fell deeply asleep on my bed. The next time I woke up, it was the ringing of my phone that disturbed me. Rubbing my eyes, I pressed the answer button, and Borg's furious voice came through. "Sybil, where the hell have you been? I've been looking for you for a whole day and night." "Where did you go?" "Borg has been looking for me for a day and a night, probably because no one was there to cook for him, and he got terribly hungry before realizing I wasn't home." I replied coldly with a laugh. "Borg, did you really go on a business trip?" Borg paused, stammering, "Of course, I went with boss from our company." "Sybil, I'm out here working myself to death to earn money, and you can't even provide a warm meal when I get home. You're really something." I smirked and said, "Oh. So you went on a business trip with that bald boss-jang and stayed in a romantic couple's hotel, a fancy water bedroom. Huh, Borg, I didn't know you had such taste." Borg choked. Shocked, he asked, "How did you know?" I snorted coldly. "The hotel booking details were sent to me." "Borg, do you think I'm a fool? I have nothing more to say to you. We're breaking up right now." After hanging up, I turned on the surveillance system inside the rental. I had always wanted to install a camera at home, but Borg always found excuses to delay it. Later, I realized he didn't want me to discover his affair with Sigrid, so one of the first things I did after coming back was to install a concealed camera in the house. Most importantly, this camera has its own battery, lasting over a month, and it works even without a network. The monitor showed Borg staring at his phone in disbelief after I had hung up on him. Soon after, he tried calling me again, only to find out I had blocked him. Borg angrily threw his phone to the ground, cursing, "Damn it, that bitch, daring to block me." He then picked up his phone again and dialed another number, speaking to someone on the other end. Shortly after, Sigrid stealthily entered my house. Has Sybil left? Borg briefly explained the situation to Sigrid, who responded with a laugh and a hug around his neck, saying, "Borg, isn't this just perfect? With that bitch gone, no one can stand in our way." Listening to Sigrid's coquettish voice calmed Borg down. They exchanged a deep, affectionate look and soon found themselves passionately entangled. Collapsing onto the sofa, disgusted, I turned off the surveillance and headed to the basement. In the deepest part of the basement, I kept 2 large freezers. One was filled with various types of meat, while the other was packed with ice cream and small drinks. I took out a piece of beef brisket and picked a couple of tomatoes from the garden. Then stewed them together for a delicious dish. The sweet and sour sauce mixed with the fluffy rice, and the beef was so tender it nearly melted in my mouth, topped off with a glass of chilled cola. It was a meal to relish. I turned the surveillance back on to find Borg and Sigrid had finished their encounter. Sigrid nudged Borg, saying, "Borg, I'm hungry." Borg, clearly annoyed, turned over and muttered, "There's instant noodles in the kitchen." Sigrid, dissatisfied, pouted and wrapped herself in her clothes to head to the kitchen. However, before leaving, I had packed up and taken all the food from the rental home. I was curious to see how this loving couple would cope when the apocalypse arrived and utilities ceased. Finding nothing, Sigrid suggested, "Borg, there are no noodles. Maybe we should go out to eat." "To hell with going out, it's too hot, just order delivery, and get something for me too." It seemed Borg's savings were nearly depleted to the point where he couldn't even afford to go out. Otherwise, a man as proud as he would never settle for delivery. Reluctantly, Sigrid opened the food delivery app. This was their last chance. Tomorrow, the heat apocalypse was set to officially strike. With temperatures soaring to 50 degrees Celsius, schools would close. Businesses would shut down, and even small supermarkets would not operate. By then, it would be impossible for Borg and his partner to procure any supplies. That night, I turned on the air conditioner and prepared to enjoy one of the last bits of coolness. The next morning at 8, I stretched lazily and jumped out of bed. As soon as I opened the door, a wave of heat hit me. Checking my phone, the temperature had already reached 45 degrees Celsius. Temperatures around the world had risen sharply, with some extreme regions hitting 60 degrees. I quickly ran out, covering the garden vegetables with thick black curtains, hoping they would last a bit longer. Shadow was already unbearably hot early in the morning. Finding refuge in the cool air-conditioned living room, I patted his head, thinking we wouldn't have many more days of comfort like this. I then went to the basement and grabbed a watermelon. The basement was still relatively cool at just 30 degrees. I figured once the power went out, the house would be uninhabitable, and I planned to move down here with Shadow. As I dug into the chilled watermelon, I turned on the surveillance of Borg's home. If I remembered correctly, the local transformer would explode due to overload on the first day of the apocalypse. By now, their house must be as hot as an oven. Indeed, Borg and Sigrid were nearly undressed, both red-faced and sweating profusely, clutching ice cubes scavenged from the refrigerator. I continuously tried to cool myself down. "Borg, this isn't a solution. How about we go find a mall to escape the heat?" I suggested. "A mall? Didn't you hear the news? All the supermarkets and businesses are closed. We better just stay home," Borg replied while constantly gulping down mineral water. Sigrid swallowed hard and said, "Borg, I'm thirsty too. I want some water." Hearing this, Borg paused, thought for a moment, and then handed the water bottle to Sigrid. Sigrid quickly took the nearly empty bottle and drank all the remaining water. At last, licking her lips and still feeling unsatisfied, Sigrid said, "Borg, is there any more water? I'm still thirsty." Borg shook his head and said, "That was the last one." "Sigrid, do you have any food at home? I'm starving." After thinking for a moment, Sigrid clapped her hands and said, "I think there are a few pieces of bread left. I'll go get them now." Sigrid quickly left the room and ran down the hallway. She returned holding several pieces of bread but hesitated as she stepped out the door. She hid a few pieces and came back with the rest. As soon as Borg saw the food, he tore open the packaging and started devouring it voraciously. Initially, Sigrid patted his back, telling him to slow down so he wouldn't choke, but when Borg reached for the last piece of bread, Sigrid's expression darkened. "Borg, this is all we have left. Eat it sparingly." Borg slapped Sigrid's hand away and swallowed the last piece of bread in haste. Sigrid stared at Borg in shock before yelling, "Borg, are you out of your mind? This is the last of our food. Don't you know to save some? I haven't eaten anything yet." Borg pounded his chest and coldly replied, "It's your own fault for not stocking up on food. If Sybil were still here, I could eat whatever I wanted instead of this tasteless bread." Sigrid trembled with anger, unable to believe that the man who had always been so agreeable could say such things. Unable to bear the insult, she raised her hand to slap Borg, and the two of them started fighting. The fight was intense, and I tidied up some ribs while watching them brawl with interest. Later, somehow, Borg managed to reconcile with Sigrid. Starving and perhaps by fate, Borg found a packet of expired noodles at home. I slapped my forehead, annoyed that I hadn't taken it with me. Although expired, the noodles didn't stop Sigrid and Borg from enjoying their meal. They savored the plain noodle soup, but Sigrid didn't notice the greedy look in the eyes of the man beside her. That night, while slurping vermicelli, I watched a drama series on my tablet. Suddenly, everything went dark. On the 7th day of the apocalypse, the power was out, even though I have solar panels. I still didn't dare to turn on any appliances. There aren't many people living nearby. But if someone were to see, it would be the end of it all. The cool air from the air conditioner was slowly dissipating, and despite it being nighttime, the temperature was still hovering around 48 degrees Celsius. I wiped the sweat off my forehead and took Shadow down to the basement. The temperature there had also risen, but it was much cooler compared to upstairs. I filled Shadow's bowl with some dog food, but he wasn't eating much due to the heat, so I tossed him a piece of watermelon, which he devoured eagerly. I turned on a small fan and was planning to watch some TV before going to sleep when Shadow suddenly barked twice. Alert! I quickly covered Shadow's mouth, but he struggled free and dashed upstairs. I turned on the surveillance system and was shocked to see a figure standing at my front door. The sight nearly scared me to death. What should I do? Someone must have seen my supplies and targeted me. The pain of being tortured by a murderer in a past life was still vivid in my memory, and my body couldn't help but shiver. Despite the 48-degree heat, I broke out in a cold sweat. Bark, bark, bark. Shadow barked fiercely as the new iron door thudded. Knowing I couldn't hide any longer, I grabbed a knife and slowly moved towards the door. My old home was equipped with a security system. This iron door wouldn't be easy to breach, not even by a vehicle. With that thought, I steadied my nerves, pretended to be woken up by the noise, and called out, "Who's there?" I gripped the kitchen knife tightly, ready to fight to the death if someone forced their way in. "It's me, open the door." The voice was old and familiar. I paused for a moment and called out, "Grandpa Booth." "It's me, Sybil. Do you have anything to cool off with?" Grandpa Booth responded. I opened the door and welcomed Grandpa Booth inside. He had a towel around his neck and kept wiping the sweat off his forehead with it. "This heat could kill someone. Sybil, do you have anything to cool off with?" The old man on the east side seems to have heatstroke. I naturally had some medical supplies prepared and quickly went inside to fetch a box for Grandpa Booth. He took a few items from the box and said, "I don't need this much. These will suffice. In these times, you better keep things for yourself. I'm off now. Sybil, take care of yourself." After he left, I might have regretted giving away supplies, but I couldn't bear to watch a life fade away right before my eyes. I sighed, locked the door, and went back inside. The next day, I was woken up early by the heat. I checked my phone. It was only 5 o'clock, and the temperature was already 50 degrees Celsius. When will these days end? I opened the freezer, pulled out a bottle of cold water, and gulped it down. Turning on the surveillance again, I saw Borg lying flat on the floor, holding an empty water bottle. No, it wasn't an empty water bottle. There was still a drop of water inside, which he struggled to pour into his mouth. It seemed that even water was being rationed in the city now. I glanced at the 2 large water storage tanks in the yard, filled with enough water to last me half a year. Finally, the drop of water in the bottle slid out, but instead of landing in Borg's mouth, it splashed onto the floor. Borg immediately tried to suck it up, but it was too late. The drop had already evaporated. In frustration, Borg hurled the empty bottle against the wall, letting out a painful howl. Sigrid's cheeks were flushed red. She struggled to crawl to the water bottle, picked it up, and repeatedly tried to pour from it into her mouth. Her lips were chapped and peeling from dehydration, her hair soaked with sweat, clinging to her forehead. Unfortunately, the bottle was now completely empty. After what felt like ages, the sound of electronics powering up filled the room. It was time for the daily water and power supply. Borg scrambled up from the floor and staggered into the kitchen, greedily drinking from the tap. The water flow was meager, and it took Borg a while to feel satisfied. Sigrid hurried over, wanting some water, but Borg pushed her away. "Back off. Can't you see I'm saving water here?" Sigrid had no choice but to head to the bathroom and drink water there. With the power restored, the room gradually cooled down. Borg lay on the floor, his eyes heavy with fatigue. Sigrid also quickly closed her eyes, ready to rest. I watched for a while but found it boring and was about to turn off the surveillance. Unexpectedly, Sigrid quietly opened her eyes. She walked over to Borg, waved her hand in front of him to make sure he was asleep, then quietly opened the door and left Borg's house. I quickly switched the camera, curious about what Sigrid was up to. Could she be heading home? But there was nothing at her place, and it was better to stay with Borg, at least to share some soup. Suddenly, I remembered something. Indeed, Sigrid's actions confirmed my suspicion. Desperate with hunger, she didn't even close the door as she dove into her hidden stash of bread, tearing open the package and devouring it hungrily. Borg's house and Sigrid's faced each other, and my camera had a clear view of Sigrid's actions. You should have closed the door to eat. What if some criminal passed by? As I was thinking this, the door suddenly moved. I had a bad feeling, and then saw Borg come out, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at Sigrid. The next second, Borg grabbed Sigrid by the hair and slapped her. Bitch, I've been feeding you well and you dare to eat alone. Sigrid, already frail and weakened by hunger, could only endure Borg's beating. Soon, Sigrid collapsed on the ground, motionless. I sighed and prepared to cook for myself. Bark, bark, bark. Shadow started barking again. Someone was coming. I turned on the front door surveillance and found it was still Grandpa Booth. I ran upstairs. I opened the door and greeted him. Grandpa Booth, it's so hot outside. What brings you here? Grandpa Booth smiled and handed me a bag, speaking with affection. Oh, it's quite cool now. Here, take this for yourself to eat. If things are tough at home, just let me know. Don't eat spoiled food. It's gone bad. I paused, recalling that yesterday when Grandpa Booth visited, I was eating stinky tofu noodles. The old man didn't know what stinky tofu noodles were. He only knew that spoiled food shouldn't be eaten. The bag that Grandpa Booth gave me contained potatoes, which made me think that there probably wasn't much food at his own home either. Despite this, he was still willing to share some of his food with me. My nose tingled, and I shook my head. No, Grandpa Booth, I have food. What I was eating yesterday is called stinky tofu noodles, and they weren't spoiled. Grandpa Booth didn't quite understand what I meant, but he was happy to hear that I had something to eat. Well, as long as you're okay, I'll leave you to it. I'm going to check on some others. After a moment's thought, I stopped Grandpa Booth. I handed him a bag of rice, a string of pork, and a few eggs. Grandpa Booth looked at me in astonishment. Sybil, where did you get all this food? I pursed my lips and replied, don't worry about that, Grandpa Booth, just know that I have food here, and if you run out, you can come and get some. Grandpa Booth wanted to say something, but under my insistence, he finally left with the food. It was getting late, so I cooked a piece of chicken breast, shredded it, and mixed it with a sauce to make myself a bowl of chicken noodle salad. The lychees in the fridge were also frozen, which made them even sweeter and crisper, a delightful treat. I checked the surveillance again. Strangely, in this short time, Borg had managed to obtain instant noodles and mineral water. Wait, where had Sigrid gone? I switched the camera view and saw that the door to Sigrid's house was wide open, but no one was inside. I knew where she had gone, calculating the timing. In my past life, Borg also traded me to a murderer at this time to get food and water. Now he was repeating his old tricks, but this time Sigrid was the victim. I didn't want to watch the surveillance anymore, so I turned off the tablet. The vegetables I had planted in the garden were almost dead, only a few in the flower pots were still thriving. I picked a small tomato, and it tasted quite good. As night fell, I went to bed early. At some point, Shadow suddenly woke me up with his paws. I looked at Shadow, sensing something was off. He was anxiously spinning around on the floor, almost as if he was about to speak. Suddenly, I heard a knock at the door. Was it Grandpa Booth again? I turned on the surveillance. It was Grandpa Booth, but he wasn't alone. Several figures stood behind him. 7 or 8 people crowded outside my door. A chill ran up from my feet, realizing that, in the last days, you truly cannot afford to be randomly kind-hearted. Thump, thump, thump. I couldn't tell if it was my heartbeat or someone knocking at the door. Sybil, open the door. Grandpa Booth's voice rang in my ears like a death knell. Once, I found his voice warm and friendly. No, it only struck terror. No, I couldn't just sit here and wait for doom. I steadied myself and asked, Grandpa Booth, what's the matter so late at night? Hearing my response, Grandpa Booth urgently said, our food supply has run out. Some of the elderly are barely hanging on. Could you lend us some food? I remained silent. Then another voice, that of an old lady, followed. Sybil, I have money. Can I buy some food from you? My husband is really not doing well. Please be kind. I clenched my fists and finally opened the door. There stood 7 or 8 people outside, all frail and weak, some hunched over, some leaning on canes. Dark sweat ran down their wrinkled skin, and their cloudy eyes were filled with hope. An old lady pulled out a plastic bag full of loose change. I couldn't imagine how long she had been saving it. Sybil, I'll give you all my money, just for a bowl of noodles. No, even a bite would do. As she spoke, the old lady almost knelt down. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and helped her up, saying, Grandma, why are you doing this? I have food and can lend some to everyone. Nowadays, There were only a few dozen elderly people in the village. With my food reserves, we could probably make it last a few months if we're careful. I refused to believe that the world would still be apocalyptic after a few months. I brought out the food and distributed some to everyone. The old lady, looking at the rice in her hands, said, now we have food to eat, but this heat is still going to kill us. Suddenly, Grandpa Booth said, I remember there's a bomb shelter in the mountains. It's quite cool inside. Why don't we move there during the night? Everyone agreed with Grandpa Booth's suggestion, and so did I. So, Grandpa Booth went from house to house to inform the villagers to prepare for evacuation. I started up the van, and Grandpa Booth pulled out his tricycle. United, the villagers gathered everything useful from their homes and set off for the bomb shelter in a grand procession, due to the rugged mountain path. I drove slowly, and Grandpa Booth's tricycle moved even slower. A breeze at night brought a refreshing relief. Hustling and bustling, we reached the bomb shelter before dawn. Indeed, it was much cooler inside, and everyone finally took a deep breath of relief. We lived in the bomb shelter for half a month. One night, Grandpa Booth, looking at the clumped salt in a jar, licked it and then burst out laughing. It's going to rain, it's going to rain. I was puzzled, but Grandpa Booth continued, with such high humidity, it's definitely going to rain tonight. Looking at the cloudless sky outside, I was skeptical, but at midnight, I heard cheers. A wild wind arose, and it really started to pour heavily. Checking the weather forecast again, the coming days were all expected to be rainy. The temperature finally began to drop slowly. A surge of indescribable excitement overwhelmed me, and I rushed into the rain, shouting like a primitive being. This was not just a rebirth for the world, but also for me. Once the temperature returned to normal, I went back to the city I had left. From the surveillance, I saw Borg had consumed all the food that Sigrid had earned through her contributions. Sigrid wasn't me. After being treated like that by Borg, she still went back to him. With her stunning appearance and fragile demeanor, she successfully stayed by the side of that murderer. The murderer had looted many people's supplies, so Sigrid didn't suffer much by following him. However, with the apocalypse over and civilization restored, the murderer naturally had to face his deserved punishment, and Sigrid, as his accomplice, was also imprisoned. Despite Borg's extreme rationing of food, the supplies only lasted him a week. During the following week, he consumed everything edible in his house. When rescue workers found him, he had passed out. A medical examination revealed his stomach was filled with cotton. He had been so desperate that he ate the cotton from his quilts. Fortunately, his life was not in danger, and after a few days of treatment in the hospital, Borg began to recover. However, he never anticipated that before the apocalypse, I had taken out numerous loans using his identity. Now penniless, he was utterly unable to repay the debts, so, to avoid being harmed by his creditors, he was forced to constantly hide and move locations. Years later, one day, I was out driving my newly purchased sports car, while waiting at a traffic light. A ragged man approached me. Please, have pity on me. I was just about to give him a cake I had just bought, but I withdrew my hand when I saw his face. Borg recognized me too. Screaming, he covered his face and ran away, drawing numerous curious glances. Well, trash.